Welcome to the show where you don't know if it's part of the show.
Welcome to Red Hen Radio, where truth fears no investigation. What do you know? What do you believe? Who are you? Where did you come from? Where are you going? How will you determine the way? What you think is news for you is only and absolutely propaganda. It's spin. There is no news for you. Only misdirection and disinformation. Join us here at Red Hen Radio as we discover how to squint when what we see isn't what ought to be. Because truth is not counterintuitive. Reading between the lines of the story you were just fed. I'm your host, Travis Finley. Welcome to the show. Do you know that you're part of the show?
Well, you don't know if it's part of the show.
REDHENN space radio, Red Hen Radio on YouTube. Make sure you guys head over there and hit the subscribe button. That's our buddy Travis. I'm sure he's honking somewhere. Thanks, Travis. That's awesome. Welcome back to Have No Fear. My name is Josh Corey. We have got a full house and a busy agenda, and we've jacked around for long enough. So let's jump right in and welcome Crrow777 and Jason Lindgren. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here on Have No Fear.
Thanks for having us.
It is an absolute pleasure.
Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year, gentlemen.
It is the official New Year, is it not? We have passed the spring equinox.
16 for you, 17th for me. Well, that's most of the United States. I guess there are maybe some people could be a day earlier.
Was that Chipmunk Day, the 17th?
Oh, I
saw your tweet, man. That was so
good.
brilliant.
I saw the first chipmunk. My wife came in, said she saw it. It was the day before the equinox. Then she saw two the day of the equinox. We went driving out, and the first woodchuck with sleep still in his eyes. He looked all sleepy. You know, they're about the size of a beaver. So that was all confirmation for me. And that happened on the true equinox. But now there's this thing going on, man. They invented a new word that I had not previously heard called equilux. And so what they're telling everyone is that equilux is equal day. And so that means that there's actually this weird thing that can happen where a few days before the spring equinox, there's an equal day and night. And then a few days after the fall equinox. In other words, they're compounding their lie. Because what they're calling equilux is actually the equinox, which is wholly dependent on geography in the first place.
Is this the whole, if you don't want to tell the truth, baffle them with bullshit kind of thing?
Well, you can, when you start using words like equilux, the average American probably doesn't speak a lot of German, or what would that be? Latin, I guess. Lux would be for light. And then the original word is part German, Nacht for night. So most people probably get lost in the mechanics of the word.
Equilux sounds more like a new Hyundai coming out for 2020.
It's got to be a crossover.
Yeah, don't hold your breath. It's probably coming. They have an Equinox right now, but I think they sell it on the wrong day.
That is awesome. So we asked the ladies while they were here. You guys end up making New Year's resolutions?
I didn't.
No, I don't follow much tradition.
I didn't figure you would. That's kind of the answer I expected, but I didn't want to seem sexist. So tell us all about Shoot the Moon. This is what I really want to get you guys on here because I'm super excited about this movie coming out.
All right, my first question is, did you see the trailer? The newest.
I'm pretty sure I've seen the newest one. I can't imagine there's been another one.
Well, I would like to know what your thoughts on it are. I know it's not very long, but I wanted to at least get some of the real footage from the film in there, as well as just give you the general look and feel and a little bit of the music, too, that my amazing composer did for us.
I absolutely loved it. I thought it was brilliantly done. I don't watch a lot of trailers, that being said, but it definitely piques my interest. The shots were amazing. And again, it's I don't know if the newest one is the one that had the actual shot of Crow, so everybody could dispel the myth that he doesn't exist. But
He exists. I have had coffee with him.
Yeah, my face just went circumnavigated the imaginary globe that day.
I think your face being shown made the earth flat. Could be. And it broke the internet all in one day.
Well, if that's true, it was worth it then. Sooner or later, it had to happen. We'll see what the result of all this is. But it'll be interesting to see the response to this film. In some ways, I kind of feel like we're getting to be in a whole new place. Jason and I did a show on a very right-wing, big political podcast, which typically wouldn't be an audience we speak to. And mostly we had positive response. A ton of them came over to check it out. I heard after the fact that the no nukes thing caused a bunch of trouble for the channel owner. But other than that, it kind of feels like we're getting to be in a new spot where new ideas are not so shocking to so many people. And since this film is basically going to be my mug in Ultra HD telling you everything you know is wrong, it will be interesting to see how it's received.
What do you guys want to know? I'll be happy to discuss how I did it, what I did it with, any of those things. There's 2 terabytes worth of footage I had to go through of crows. I can start with that. I have 2 hard drives that I duplicated and went to go visit him at his home. Did all the interviews and broken up over 2 days. And that's what I've been sifting through. Taught myself DaVinci Resolve 15 and how to color grade and video edit and all that.
I have a question, if it's okay.
Yeah.
That's why you're here.
My question is, okay, because I've been following Crow and stuff for quite a while, and so I've seen a lot of the footage on his channel and a lot of the lunar wave stuff and everything. Is there footage in the film that hasn't been released on YouTube or any other media?
Oh my God.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. Also, I did some work on them to give them more definition and things like that too. Like it doesn't look like a great big YouTube video was my very big goal. Like I wanted this to look like a cinematic presentation. So instead of doing it in 16:9, I did it in 2.39 so that when it's on the big screen, it looks like it's on the big screen. I got very good quickly with doing zooming and panning and tightening up and those kinds of things. So you're seeing things in a way you've never seen them before. And it gave it a very cinematic feel. And I'm dying to see it on a big screen. And hopefully I actually did it right.
So how is the learning curve on DaVinci?
I have an unfair advantage compared to a lot of people. I've been an audio engineer for over 20 years. So it didn't take me long to take what I knew about digital audio workstations and just apply it to video editing, because it's actually very similar the way you cut and edit and all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't that big of a deal. It was just learning the concept of color grading and light balancing and all those kinds of things that I couldn't use my audio knowledge for. But the good thing, of course, with having all the audio knowledge is going straight in. My audio was very good, very clean. And apparently, from what other people have told me, amateur filmmakers usually drop the ball on the audio side of things. That was the one thing I went into the whole thing very strong on. So thank goodness, if you've seen the trailer, you know that everything sounds very crisp and clear and upfront.
That's awesome. I'm so excited. Yeah, in true Iron Realm Media fashion, we've had a great discussion over the break. So now we've just got to completely try to recreate that organic discussion and go.
All right.
I'll give you a feed. I'm just going to play the latest trailer. I think you can probably tell me it's wrong. I'll just stick it up on the main screen, guys. I'm sure. Oh,
yeah, that's the right one.
No sound.
That's the one.
Okay.
The sound will be on YouTube. We just won't hear it.
I like the effect.
I wasn't going to put the sound on. Josh, just loop it a couple of times because the moonshot I just saw there was wicked.
No, I got you. All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Let the bad boy play. Actually, go ahead. Yeah.
Tell you what, then. Let me. I'll give you guys sound as well, so you know what's going off.
Perfect.
Okay. I'll stick it on play.
I purchased my first telescope in the mid-90s, high tech for the time, to be sure. I went into debt like I'd never gone into debt for anything but a car at the time to do it. That single act in my life led me in a path that has changed everything.
That is awesome.
I can't freaking wait.
The way it looks, and of course the musical, the music in it too. They're just, it definitely leaves you wanting more. Like, let's see it now. Can we see it now?
That was my intention. Now, that trailer is definitely more for people who are familiar with Crrow's work. I'm probably going to make another one for a general audience, especially if film festivals start asking me for things and they don't know who Crrow is or the Lunar Wave or any of that stuff. And we're like, okay, what the hell is this thing about?
What's cool about the music is there's no commonality, but it all works. And that's what I like about it. And there is some classical music in there that has to do with the moon. But other than that, that's all original scores, right, Jason? Other than the Beethoven and...
Correct. Yeah, Brett literally wrote, 15 pieces of music, I'm guessing. I forget exactly, but it's quite a few. Totally original. He scored them, sent them to me. I put them in my digital audio workstation and used all my Universal Audio plugins and all the things that I use and just gave them a little beef, and into the film they went.
You know, it's a bit ironic, too. I don't know if you know, I shared a birthday with Beethoven.
So did he record those instruments organically? That surely sounded like a real pipe organ.
Those are very high-end virtual instruments.
You're blowing it, man. You should have said how we went to St. George's.
Right.
To record the pipe.
Went to France and
the Hunchback.
we recorded really in Notre Dame. I took real impulse responses of the cathedral. That's my reverb, is real Notre Dame.
Brilliant.
So ideally, how many cities would you like to hit here in the United States?
Oh, I'll go anywhere that there's going to be an audience. That's the thing I'm having trouble with, is I don't know how many people are actually going to show up at any particular location. I love traveling, so I'll go anywhere and everywhere. It's just a question of, am I going to show up after driving for X amount of hours and then there's 4 people there, including myself and my girlfriend and my daughter. So it's like, yeah, well.
Yeah.
Well, I think if we announce it on a couple shows, like the next couple that we do, and you use Facebook, you should be able to get an idea. But more so, I think maybe one of the benchmarks that I will be paying attention to is the film festivals, because it's going to be wholly different from almost anything that gets run at a festival. And again, how are people going to react to hearing me tell them satellites don't exist, or any of the number of the things we cover? It will be interesting. It'll be an interesting gauge for the overall mindset of society to see if it's just wholly these people are on crack or this was interesting.
Film festivals, probably half of them enjoy smelling their own farts, and the other half are probably just people wanting to make it. I see Patricia nodding. She's probably like, yeah, I've been around them.
Well, I would love to see you come right smack dab in the middle of the States and hit St. Louis. I could probably get an in to one of the radio stations and get them to watch the trailer and probably get them to either contact you or get me on there to plug the hell out of it. So that's always an option, because I would love to see an audience come down here and fill a theater in St. Louis to show it.
In some ways, it seems like that might be a smart way to go, is if you have a person that's interested in a city, if that person kind of spearheads trying to put it together for that one venue, that might be a good way to go.
Yeah, I'm totally cool with that. Actually, we set up an email specifically for the film. So any of you guys want to pass it out to, it's shootthemoonmovie@gmail.com. Anything you want to convey to us regarding the film, just email us there. Myself and Rose helps me with it. We just are collecting all of it, putting it in a big old list. And then once we're ready, like, okay, well, this is done, this is out, we can start going places. I want to say, what about this city? What about this city? We got to know where to go and how many people actually are going to show up. That's the important part. But if anybody specifically wants to do a lot of work setting something up in a specific city, cool, then get in touch with me and let's make it happen.
So are
is that exclusively
tackling things
US?
like the film posters and things like that?
Yes, I'm gonna have I have some promo sheets printed up already. I'm gonna probably make some of the, I don't know what they're technically called, but the really big posters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have some of those printed up. Maybe I'll just have one put up and put into some kind of frame or something to bring with me just to hang up for the night. That's what I've been thinking of. Still kicking around ideas, but I do have to start making decisions very quickly.
I think you can even find a template online about doing just a basic press packet where you include the artwork and your trailers and things like that, potential questions or just your basic bios. I'm not even sure what kind of templates they'd have out there, but just an idea for the people that would be going to the radios or any of the media. You could just take that press packet with them or forward it to them in an email. And just
it's EPK, electronic press kit. I have to build one of those. It's one of the gazillion things that are on my list I have to do yesterday.
Gotcha.
Can I, how do you share the screen?
Should be down at the very bottom. There'll be a little green button.
Before we move on there, guys, is this a exclusively US thing, or is something you're
No,
looking?
if we can figure out how to work it, it'll go anywhere. All right. Select a window, share. So can you guys see a folder there?
Yep.
So these were some of the early ideas. But then we started to realize if we wanted to print, we wanted some kind of more like movie house. So that's how these came in, which those would probably also print well on a shirt.
Yeah, I like
but
that.
Those earlier, we have better versions. These are just JPEGs, and for some reason, my version of Photoshop will not handle an alpha channel anymore. So I might have to ask China to send me a new version.
That second one you had, I thought was really great. That second one that you showed, that was good.
The black and white.
All right. So
No, not the black and white one. It
like the thumbnail that
here,
you guys,
hold on, I'll show you.
Crow uses.
There's this one. There's this one with the stained glass.
That one. I love that one. I really like that one, personally. That's just my opinion.
So we had a young artist do this. So basically everything below the fold was just old designs that I had made that he took. But then he went further. Actually, this thing of me on the scope that discovered the lunar wave, I can't show you that image, I don't think, because of the alpha channel problem I'm having, but he illustrated all this. And it's like kick butt illustration. And it's more in a movie house style one like this, but there's more light in it. He did a good job. All right, let me see. How do I extricate myself from all this?
It should be up at the top. Maybe a chance to stop sharing, I think. I know it's been a while since I've shared a screen.
I'm gonna kick my ass here. Optimize full. I have no idea.
I'm going to totally reveal my geekiness right now and just say that I haven't been this excited about a film since Star Wars Episode 1. Honestly,
That's awesome.
You'll probably be less disappointed.
I'm sure
There's
of
the
it.
tagline.
100% sure of it.
Without a
Much
doubt.
less.
You can put that on your movie poster, Jason.
You'll be less disappointed than with Star Wars.
There you go.
Bazing!
As long as there's no bloody Jar Jar Binks in it.
And Disney won't be buying us out, so they won't screw it up completely and utterly.
Well, don't speak so early. There's still time.
No. The Mouse House will not have us. You can't have us no matter how much money you throw at us. Wait, how big is that check? No, you can't. No.
Have you had any word from anybody down south of the equator, like South America? I know Iru and all of them always speak really highly of you guys.
No one's reached out to me. That's why I'm giving you guys that email. You are definitely welcome to give that out to whomever. I'm up for traveling the whole world, man. shootthemoonmovie@gmail.com. Give it to whomever, and if they've got something serious in mind, I've got a passport. We'll make it happen.
Yeah,
It just so happens we know some people that happen to be taking a little tour of Europe as well, hitting some major cities and doing some nice stops along the way. I wonder if there'd be a way to weave in amongst that European tour. That's a novel idea. We may have to give that some thought.
Fill crowds at every one of those places, I bet.
I really could. I bet you could. Yeah. You'd probably have lines.
Well, that would be nice. It'd be very humbling to actually see people showing up for it.
I think so. I think with the buzz that's being generated with this gigantic tour that's going on, I think because they'll be doing stops along the way and talking to press. They'll be doing stops along for the convention as well, which would be a prime time to do it, because debuting that film at one of these conventions, or at the same time as one of these conventions where the conventioneers could all just shuffle on over to the theater, would be ideal.
Now, there's two ways we can do it. Obviously, a real theater would be awesome, because obviously real theater, big screen, great movie projector. But I also picked up a decent home projector and a 12-foot screen, so I can do home showings too. If enough people want to show up and someone's willing to volunteer their home for the evening, we could do something like that as well. But Rose wants me to let you know that people should see it on the big screen, and they deserve that opportunity because of just how you can see the objects on that large screen, and the moon's going to look like Star Wars, but except that it's not fake.
That's why I interjected,
Exactly.
Jason.
Exactly. That's what's so exciting about it. That it's reality.
What's kind of ironic is we shot the interview portions in a old one-room library in New England that I could get access to. I don't remember what was the creation. It's like a couple hundred years old or something like that. But we did one of the sequences, and we were talking about what the next big thing would be, which I've said before, will probably be the sun. And then as fate would have it, as we were doing the shows and we came across the Falconelli stuff again, I'd be able to have epiphanies about that footage I shot of the double sun way back. So that's actually going to close the film, probably. The work that I did with the hydrogen alpha telescope and the full spectrum camera. I have mixed feelings, because it would sure be nice if other people could film something similar. It's always, it's a double-edged sword. It's nice to be the guy that finds a thing, but it's not so nice to be the guy who finds a thing and then nobody else sees it for 2 years, like the lunar wave.
Have you seen
I'm hunting
Donnie
for it.
from the Daytona's footage of the sun going into the cloud, and there's 4 suns?
Yeah, we've seen that. That's pretty cool.
Have you seen the video released by the Potter's Clay? It was originally Waiting for Jesus Christ. It was the channel. Apparently there was 2 moons spotted in the sky.
That's a new one. I haven't heard that one before.
I don't think I've seen that. I've been seeing, is that Donnie Daytona too? I don't know. Like this black dot in front of the sun, but it's reflected on water too. It looks like all pixely and weird, but I probably wouldn't have thought much of it. But I saw that years ago. Similar thing where a guy was like in Arkansas or something. He shot the exact same thing, the black dot in front of the sun. And there was like, you know how in the South they have like ponds on their property for cattle and other things. He pans the camera down, not really paying attention, but you can see the reflection of the sun, and the same thing was going on. That little black dot looks like it's all flashing pixels or something. Of course, everyone's trying to say it's a sun simulator, which I don't accept. I'm quite ready to think about, you know, technology up there interfering, but I'm not really prepared to
And see,
consider.
every time I've ever caught that, it's either been on like my drone camera, which is real low grade, not anything high end at all, or actually, I think that's the only place I've seen that, where I'll be panning around up there and it hits the sun just as it goes by. And like you say, in the middle of the sun, there's black pixelation going on. It makes no sense, other than to me that it's just way too much intensity for that crap camera to deal with. So all it can do is just make a big black spot. That's what I had attributed to.
Well, that's
But seeing it
interesting.
on the water, well, I guess the water would do it too if it's bright enough. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because the footage that I just saw was shot with a drone, but the footage I saw a few years ago was before drones were commonplace. It's always possible that the technology you're using, but when you see it reflected in water, then that starts to feel like
That's why I'm
something
going,
else.
Well, they say if you want to see interesting things, look at the moon or during an eclipse and a reflection. I've yet to be able to catch that.
Oh yeah, you get the what do they call it? Bands. I forget, something bands or something. You get most times you see it during a solar eclipse. But that's the other thing in the movie. You know, I basically state that the moon plays no role whatsoever in a solar eclipse. So it'll be interesting to see how many heads pop and how many people think about it.
Yeah, I'd be real curious. I'd be real curious how this whole documentary is received. So on my screen share, I have this video for the channel Waiting for Jesus Christ, where it's apparently he's capturing 2 moons.
Is that what we're supposed to be seeing? 2 moons right there?
Only if you're drunk.
No, it's a real quick thing that happens in the video that at the end they do a still shot of it. You really have to watch the video closely to see it happening. I think they shot this through a window and it's the reflection. That's what I'm thinking.
I was gonna say all day long that looks like, yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten this effect from a camera when I was taking pictures of the moon, when I first started taking pictures of the moon, and I would take it from different angles and the object looked like it was moving. When I first looked at the pictures, I was like, oh my God, it's moving. Like, what is that? What is that? And then I realized that it was just an effect of the lenses in the camera and it was reflection. And that's what that looks like, unfortunately.
If you go like to the last minute or so of the video, they'll do a still shot and you can see that what happens. There's when it happens, but when there we go. Yeah.
Huh.
What's interesting about that is that the video is way overexposed at that point, but the reflected image isn't. I'd have to think about that.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I got the
So
same thing.
it has to be something like that where you're looking at the reflection on a window. The source is so bright that it's blown out and overexposed, but a reflection has already refracted some of the surface brightness off. So if I had to just make a snap guess, I would say you're looking at the reflection through glass.
I would have to agree with that. Yeah.
Who knows? That's the thing about video. You didn't shoot yourself, you know?
The question came from Bob.
Yeah. Well, and if you go out and you film the luminaries on your own, a whole bunch, you'll start to understand how your camera works and how the lenses work and stuff like that. I feel like a lot of these videos that get uploaded about that sort of stuff is just people that don't understand their optics, and
about 80% of it is overexposed, like all the things that go through the sun. That's just simply the sun overexposed. all of it. I have never seen one that isn't. But ironically, the people who filmed the anomaly during the solar eclipse were filming the sun overexposed, which is what was required to catch the anomaly because it was so dim. So that doubling of the sun during the solar eclipse, most of us who knew how to film didn't catch it because we were not overexposed. So that's something to keep in mind, particularly Jason now with his P1000. You know, sometimes you want to overexpose just to see.
Yeah, I just started doing some tests myself. I did some solar tests. Rose and I went out shooting yesterday, and I sent a few of them over to Crrow, and I was surprised. It literally looks like telescope footage. That thing is so damned good.
Yeah.
My computer won't take this abuse long. Let me show you the video I shot of the blood moon eclipse last year.
All right, don't call it the blood moon.
Sorry. The blue blood moon.
Yeah, that's better.
I was shooting through my car window because it was like 31 degrees, literally below freezing. So I was literally shooting through my car window. And I mean, there's the same effect. Really bright here. You see surface features here. My camera's a lot crappier version of what they were using, but I mean, it's the same idea. You get the overexposed here and the features here next to it because of the window pane I shot through the car window.
You can get that effect without even looking through a window, though. Like I was getting that effect with the lens of my camera.
Yeah, Karen. Let me screen share here.
Yeah, here. Let me get rid of it. Hang on.
I'll show you the same thing that I achieved with.
Does everybody have uninteresting footage? Sweet.
Yeah.
Let me show you some freaking footage.
Okay, so that's the one I've got. This is just with a screw-on telescopic lens. You can get the same.
Well, that's actually what I used to shoot. Is a tag.
But this is just in. Yeah, there's no window or anything. I'm looking through there.
Lots of layers of crap to be looking through to not. Yeah, I don't know.
Distribution.
Well, just that defocus proves.
Yeah.
When you defocus, the overexposed image covered the reflected image. That proves flat out that it's like a lens flare.
Yeah, totally.
It's not a real object.
The big thing about a real object, as Crrow will definitely be able to validate, is that the second object is not going to be an exact duplicate of the original. It's going to have differences, and that's the thing. Like with the binary sun thing, they didn't look exactly the same. It looked like a different object.
I agree. I also think that if there was truly a second object in the sky, you would see it with your naked eye. Unless, because unless you're using a special lens, like infrared or something, like something that filters out certain light. I feel like if there truly was a second object in the sky, would you not see it with your naked eye?
Well, depends on the wavelength, right? So I shot in hydrogen alpha. And then,
but that's a special lens, though.
Well, it's a spectrum you're not going to pick up with just your naked eye, to be sure. But to be fair, if you look at the sun, you can't see the prominences or the rills or the surface detail. That's what H alpha allows your eye to see. But then on the next day, I put a full spec camera on it. And what's weird about that footage to me, now that I kind of been going back and looking at it, is you can see like where a sharp outline of a slightly smaller sun would be. But then there's all this blur, like you're looking through water or glass or crystal. It looks like you're looking through something almost. But this is not a hard thing for people to replicate. I pretty much laid out how I did it. I laid out the time that I did it. And at that time, what the angles would be roughly. And clearly, if I'm right, the angles will probably change all season long. But then I stated, you can probably do this in the visual spectrum at sunrise and set, which is a big reason for the chemtrails. I've always thought this. So simply people going out and shooting at rise and set in visual, correctly exposed, overexposed, and underexposed. Since you're shooting, it's not that hard to do it all at once. Pretty quickly, we should see, evidence if there's a there.
You need to have these instructions in your end credits for Shoot the Moon.
Well, I kind of laid it out when we did the episode 150, where I actually inserted it kind of burns my hide, but I put some of the footage on YouTube. I explained it well enough for anyone who's interested to know what to do.
So when exactly did you catch this? Was it when the sun was far south near the equator or near
So it
tropical
was
cancer?
March and April. So again, we're right there at spring.
Okay.
It was in San Diego, and it was damn near solar noon.
Wow. So you were facing south.
Yes. But that's not all. See, what got me going on it was when I first got my my Canon converted to full spectrum. Like when my wife shoots, she goes all over the sky. And like when I shoot, I just stay on the moon because everything happens in 5 seconds. I'd be pissed off if I missed something wandering around. So we have a different style. And so one night I said, screw it. I'm going to do what my wife does. And I just started wandering all over the sky. And I found this big bright spot. The moon was full. And I found this big bright spot, like a quarter or a third of the sky away from where the moon was, so far away. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Is this a reflection off the firmament? What the hell's making this big light spot? And so I thought, well, I don't know enough about my full spectrum camera yet because I've only been using it a few months. And then another night I went back and I found it in the same spot. And another night I went back, and that's what got me going during the daytime on the solar scope. I started thinking, hey, what if I could find a similar thing during the day? But as fate would have it, it was 3 sun widths to one side and 1 sun width up. Nowhere near the distance I traveled in a similar period of time with the moon at night. But that's what got me going on it, because I began to realize if you start looking around with the right tools, you're going to find things, and the average person's going to think, oh, there's nothing to this. But if you pay attention, you'll begin to see there is something to this. If that meant anything in English.
Yeah, I find it, that's just so interesting that it was solar noon to me when you saw that.
Oh, let's also point out the fact that you've caught it more than once. This wasn't just a singular event.
No, I did. I caught it a few times, but the problem was I filmed this long enough ago where I was very worried that somehow when you get a hydrogen alpha scope, you can get this extra part called a double stack. And the double stack is more lensing and filtering that you put on the end of the tube of the solar scope. And it allows you to see surface detail that you can't see without it. And it enhances the prominences and things like that. Point being is it's more lenses and more filters. So I was so worried that I was overlooking, could the etalon be causing this or something like that. I kept trying to test it. At one point, on the footage I just showed, I take this like a wrapping paper tube and I put it over the end of the scope to ensure no lens flare could get in. But I was hung up on not being able to vet it out. And that was my mind block. And my mind didn't unblock until I read the Fulcanelli quote again. And then I realized all at once that I forgot the same lesson the lunar wave taught me. The camera pan proves it's a filmed event. And that's that.
The night you figured that out is actually a pretty amusing story too. We were going through stuff, talking about a couple upcoming shows and what we wanted to do. And we were watching these clips and you were theorizing, but you weren't sure. And then I said, what about the Fulcanelli thing? And you're like, oh yeah.
First I couldn't even remember. I read so much. The name was familiar, but when someone says that, I'm trying to think, okay, what book was it that I read that was Fulcanelli? But it wasn't a book. I never had a book by Fulcanelli. It was all online PDFs and stuff like that. But anyhow, go ahead.
Well, and then finally we looked at it and you're like, oh my. And it was like that dawning moment where everything just fell into place and you're like, this is it. Boom.
It's a funny thing when you bump into the right words in the right order. The power of a moment with the right words in the right order. There's nothing like it.
That's for sure.
Like seeing a seed you planted break the soil for the first time.
You would say that.
Yeah.
You showed your garden earlier. That's nice.
So guys, while we're still here, what else do you want to know about? Tap our brains. We're happy to share knowledge.
Well, just briefly, for those who might be joining now, where again are you going to do the premiere, or are you thinking?
We're going to do it in New Orleans. The official release date is April 5th, and we're probably going to start we'll put out an official announcement, but pre-orders for DVDs and Blu-rays that we're going to release later in the year but I'm trying to decide on which place and see what date they have open. But New Orleans is the city we settled on. So I'm going to very soon do a blast out on our Facebook pages and all that and see how much interest there actually is for a singular location. And I recently actually became friends with somebody who works in the film industry down in New Orleans who's willing to help as well. So all this is going to be happening very, very quickly.
Well, technically, if it doesn't happen right on the 5th, that's okay as long as it happens on the 5th or after the 5th, within a period of time. This was all carefully planned.
Yes. Travis Finley just texted me, actually. He has a question. How could the ancients have known about this phenomenon without the equipment that Crrow has?
The phenomenon we're speaking of?
The binary star.
Well, because they lived in a world where human intelligence was wholly a different thing than it is now. We live in a literal world. And what they did is they used things like alchemy. Like, we're going to have Phoenix Aurelius on again, and he's going to go show you how to prove to yourself using water that the sky clock influences this all. That's how they did it. They realized that the philosophical principles that they had worked out over Lord knows how many millennia applied to everything. It didn't matter if it was a mineral, it didn't matter if it was a mammal, and it didn't matter if it was a plant or anything that you can touch, kick, smell, eat in this world. There are 3 philosophical principles, and it will be made up of the body, the spirit, and the soul, with no exceptions. And when you start to understand on a philosophical level, then you can test. And as a matter of fact, I will read you, if you want to hear,
yes,
what actual intelligent people who understand the power of nature can do. Here's what Phoenix Aurelius just wrote me back.
Inside baseball here, guys.
Okay.
Which was an awesome show with Phoenix, by the way. Really dug that show.
That guy's awesome.
So, but I do have... Okay, so let me skip the first part, but basically we're talking about, he's going to come back on the show. He wants to mention his immersion study program that will launch in May, where students can come stay 3 to 7 days at a time learning to perform work with him. As a result, I'd love to come back in April or May, so we'll have him. In terms of content for the show, traditionally spring is the best time for the alchemist to begin collecting water and performing water work. Anyone who wants to have your frickin' mind, your head blown off your shoulders, go look at what an alchemist can do with just water. Because the water work is so indelibly intertwined with the constellations, I figure it might be a good thing for us to discuss, and something that listeners would be able to do if they wanted to, just because it's simplicity and it's safety. Maybe the first hour we can talk about the theory of philosophy behind the work, and that goes on and on and on. But then it goes on to say, where is it? For instance, in alchemy, the spirit of the vegetable kingdom is alcohol. That's true. It's ethyl alcohol. That's the spirit, which is why every bottle of booze says spirits, because of alchemy. So, for instance, in alchemy, spirit in the vegetable kingdom is alcohol. The ego of a plant is its extract, or what an alchemist calls its fixed sulfur. So this is not a peculiar idea to plants alone. He's just using plants as the lesser alchemical example. He could have used metals, minerals, or a living thing that breathes and walks. Therefore, if someone comes along and tries to tell me that spirit will dissolve the ego from anybody, then in a lab, I have the method to test this out. If I take cannabis, for instance, and put it in a jar, that is my body. And when I take pure ethanol, which is the spirit of the body's kingdom, and then I pour ethanol over the herb, if the alcohol begins making a tincture, as it always will, then we know that spirit is indeed dissolving the ego of the body. This goes on and on and on. But what it basically demonstrates to the average person is that when you leave behind this world of light and magic and charades and literal thinking, there were philosophical principles that were required to understand everything about this place. And we currently call it alchemy or natural science, but you will not find an old author that matters that did not think in the 4 or 5 elemental scheme, which is what this is about. And in saying that, we haven't even touched on the idea that a lot of these dudes meditated. and I have held for a long time, nobody leaves this place with their body, but maybe they do in meditation, and maybe you do when you're sleeping. So I would answer Travis by saying the alchemists knew more than we can possibly even communicate to each other, because we don't have the understanding or the language to do it right now.
They were much more in touch with themselves and the natural world around them.
It's the
Well,
real
these are
deal.
people-
And it's always been the real deal. And it is the main reason for all the bullshit we get fed, because they don't want anyone to get a hold of the real deal. And part of it, every quote, well, not every quote, most of the transition quotes in this movie are going to come from, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, from Paracelsus, from other alchemists. There's a reason for that. The dedication in the front of the thing dedicates basically in an alchemical language at the spring when all alchemical procedures need to begin. This has all been thought out, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, you don't plant your lettuce in the middle of winter.
That's exactly right. Not just you don't do it, you can't do it. I mean, you
Exactly.
could, but the point is, you might as well.
You might as well just eat the seed right there.
Yeah, drop a rock in the ground, same result.
Zach is our resident alchemist.
Is that true?
No, that's absolutely true. Zach, why don't you reveal them?
Absolutely true.
I've actually I've covered the whole waterworks thing. Just reading from a book. It's a pretty well-known alchemist who lives in Washington State, Robert Allen Bartlett. He also has a school that he teaches. And just his very first book is Real Alchemy, A Primer to Practical Alchemy. I've covered the first, I think, 12 chapters here on YouTube. You can go back in my stuff. And
so you did the water, the basic water.
No, not yet. I just covered it in concept. But no, I actually bought my distiller and I was getting ready to start doing it. And I got a call to go on a walkabout, and that was about 7 months ago. And I'm still not home yet.
Well, what's ironic about all this is that the information was so covered. Well, there came a time when only the upper crust had a shot at it. Later on, it wasn't always that way, I don't think. And then it became not just that you had to be funded by a king or someone rich to even be able to try to do this. It became very hidden and couched. The idea being that the lessers can't get a hold of this. But what's funny is, like, what was that book? I don't know. My sister-in-law gave it to me. Something about Water for Elephants, right? There's a story about a dude on the circus train drinking blackjack. And everybody knows if you drink blackjack for very long, you're going to go blind. Phoenix Aurelius pointed out why that is. And he went into the distillation from the alchemist's point of view, pointing out what poisonous chemical is being, what they used to call, I forget the word the moonshiners used, but the ignorance of alchemy is what made all those people drinking alcohols of this sort go blind, because it affects the optic nerve. And he describes this. But when you understand that you can harvest rainwater in the spring and break it into constituent parts, it forces a modern mind to recognize that not only are in they damn diapers, but they're wearing diapers and probably don't speak the language. So it is a rough jolt to understand that something as basic as water is so much more than you ever dreamed of.
And this is why it's so important to understand what they're doing to us with this technological nightmare they're creating around us. They're taking us further and further away from it. You want to talk about the concept of Luciferianism? Well, that's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think they're going to pull it off. I used to think they had a better chance. I think they're going to do a lot of damage. But I think the genie's out of the bottle now. There have been enough people around showing things that aren't going away. And the censorship, like Jason and I queued up to do the vaccine episode that we just did, knowingly that we were queuing up to get hit with the sledgehammer. So I went on my site and I said, I hope everyone here is prepared to back us up if we get knocked down. And everyone said, we're there. I said, fair enough. So we open up with kind of a silly thing, but it had its reason. The stupid pointy sticks idea. But you see, that forces Google to own their nonsense. So then when you get disgusted and say, we're not doing this anymore, this is so ridiculous, Google has to own the environment that they're causing. But there's been no censorship. And not only that, back in the day, if I put up any video, I'd get 5,000 hits right out of the gate. It's been a long time since that's been true. And in the last couple of episodes, and this one did not get censored, did not get ads pulled. I don't know. Let me look. We're up to a day later. We're up to almost 10,000 hits. So something's changed here. And I almost feel like there are so many people that were getting irked by all this. They had to back off. After all, this nonsense they just pulled off in New Zealand is a workaround, because if they did it here, too many people would be saying, screw you, we're not buying your nonsense. So now what they're doing is going to a controlled environment like New Zealand, making their fear porn and then exporting it at what they think is safe distance. And I got news for you. You can go to frickin' Antarctica if it exists and try this stuff. Too many people caught on. And then I had people who'd followed for a long time saying, did this really happen? I said, really? Do you got to actually ask me that at this point? And then
a video game.
Yeah, I said no. And then he goes, well, I've got video that proves it did, and I'm going to send it. And I wrote back, I'm not going to look at your fear porn. I'm not going to engage with it. I'm not going to touch it, you know. But it's just amazing to me how far we've come from common sense. Once you establish a liar, you don't forget that. This source lies, you know? So anything out of that source should be instantly thought of as a lie, unless they can prove otherwise, which they cannot.
It's amazing how many people fell for it, though. Just regular people that aren't in the world that we're in, looking into things.
Well, they're allowed to talk, though, right, Patricia? So those are the voices that we're hearing. How many voices do we not get to hear?
Right. Right. Well, people saw the film before it was pulled, and were telling me, oh my gosh, don't be spreading any falsehoods. Don't be doing what you usually do, Patricia, and say it's a lie. I saw the film. I saw a woman get shot. This is a person who has a law degree that was telling me this.
And these are agents of the system, whether they
and
like
they
it or
don't know
not.
they are.
That's
right.
right.
Exactly.
Some do and some don't.
Right.
This is the power of you know, what does frickin' Obi-Wan tell Luke? You know, the Force has a powerful effect on the weak-minded.
Wow.
So what you're looking at.
Yeah, and I did watch
a
that
lot of
video.
one-liners from Star Wars that are actually very apropos.
Or the Matrix, just either will work.
People put those movies out are anything but stupid.
Right, exactly. You know,
Well,
I had a
any
copy
movie
of
that
those New Zealand. I had a copy of that video before I even knew it happened. I woke up.
You're
that
going
morning,
to jail, my friend. I'm sorry.
I woke up that morning and I was like, "What is this video somebody sent me?" And I was like, "What is that?" I'm like, "This looks fake." I'm like, "What is this?" And
like
and
the
then
car
they're
in
like,
space.
"Oh no, there was a shooting in New Zealand," and I was like, "Come on." It was like before I even knew it happened, I saw it and I was like, "Why does it sound like an air rifle?" Because
Well,
I
apparently
shoot
the
firearms,
magic.
and I was like, no, that's not what real rifles sound like. Sorry, no.
Right. Apparently the magic bullets have gotten an upgrade. Now they don't just take rights and lefts in midair. The actual casings just disappear in midair. So I mean, technology.
Well, what gets me is like when I was in the Marine Corps, it was commonly accepted there were 200,000 Marines, United States Marines in the world, and that was down from an all-time high of something like 400,000. So when you begin to work from the smallest branch, which is the Marine Corps, up to the biggest branches, which is the Navy, probably the Air Force at this point, you're talking about a crap load of people. Every one of those people has been through basic training. Every one of those people have shot an M16. And when you put an AK-47 next to an M16, it kind of feels like the difference between a 22 and a 45. When you shoot an AK-47, it's like a handheld cannon. And like when they pulled their nonsense in Paris, I was interviewed in Paris shortly after they did that with an interpreter. And I said, can I address this? And the guy, this famous dude, Rock, from Paris, said, if you do, the gendarmes will be at my door tomorrow. And so I basically just apologized to the people of France and assured them this nonsense was going on over here nonstop by that time. But the point is, they show a guy jumping over a supposed police officer with an AK and pumping off a couple rounds into him at point blank. And how is it that with this many ex-military and active duty military that no one's saying, wait a minute, not so quick here. I've shot these large caliber assault, and if that's really what happened, it would be such a horrendous gore fest that they wouldn't even be able to show a video like that on social media if it was real. But this goes on. And this is case in point for spellcasting. Spellcasting works on initiated and weak minds. It's what it does. Or, to be fair, afraid minds. That's really good fertile
MK
ground.
Ultra fucking minds.
Well, that's, so many people walk around in fear all the time, and that's a fertile mind for manipulation.
Well, PTSD will do that to people. So if you can traumatize well enough, then they're going to walk around waiting for that next shoe to drop all day long.
Mind control? Never heard of that before.
There's a couple of bits, guys, on the. I've just been talking in chat there. I got sent the video last Friday night, Josh, and I kind of watched it before I headed off to bed. There was a certain thing that when the guy's riding in the car, and I've only watched it on my phone, but I paused it and took a screenshot and I've zoomed in. And if anyone's got a proper good thing they can watch it on a PC, if you can look in the rear view mirror, just like there's those bullets which are CGI'd in and then don't appear on the floor, I just kind of noticed that the guy's face, when the car tilts and goes around the corner, you kind of see his head there in the rear view mirror. But all of the details is like a mannequin. There's no actual real person there. And if there's anyone that can analyze that and pause it well and have a look, it's just something
It's probably all CGI. He probably doesn't even exist. That's why they have to.
The problem
blur
is
the
all the
picture.
video that we get is so low res. Like, with everybody's got an HD camera in their freaking pocket right now.
You mean it violates Crow's law of high definition? I wonder why.
Exactly. And then we all get this like 360 DPI picture.
No.
And that was
that is real.
The contradiction that I saw in the quality of the video and then the level of distortion in the mirror.
When you reach some plateau in this life, you quit looking at pieces and parts. Like, I could take apart a video, but I will never look at that video ever. I won't do it. I don't care. I'm not putting that crap in my head. My point being is, when you quit looking at the pieces and parts, there's this whole world around you. And I would mention that lately, started about a year ago, they started running an old Al Pacino movie. I don't know if it's from the 90s or the early 2000s, called Simone, which was about him creating a computer-generated A-list Hollywood star that doesn't exist anywhere but in a computer. The name Simone, of course, is Simulation 1, right? That's the abbreviation. Simone is Sim 1. This is a poke in the eye, and this is running now. If I was a Hollywood A-list actor, there'd be two things that I'd be concerned with. That, first of all, I'm never going to die. They're going to take the image that they own of me and they're going to keep bringing it back. And probably, like Jason said, there will be new episodes of the original Star Trek at some point in the future with the original cast. But what's really going to happen is actors and people and unions and paychecks and medical is a pain in the ass. So why the hell wouldn't you make it all up in a computer? You can do it so no one can tell the difference. I saw George Clooney go to space with Sandra Bullock, for crying out loud. It's real, right? It doesn't get any realer than that. My point being, video is no longer the measure of anything. And that's not how you detect it. You detect it by smell.
Yeah. The sniff test. These things just smell bad. You could even wake up, and I'm not saying this has ever happened to me, but wake up hungover and watch on a really low quality cell phone one of these events. And even in that half inebriated state, you take the sniff test and they all look suspect, and they have the same hallmarks. Shoes seem to play a role in all of these things. Always.
Jungle Surfer did ad nauseum films on the shoe idea, and that started many years ago. And he's not wrong.
Well, what about the Holocaust Museum? I don't want to bring up this topic, but the Holocaust Museum, shoes.
Of course, it's the same idea all
Every
over
one of the
again.
museums, piles of them.
That's maybe the most ingenious kind of mental block mind trap that's
Yeah.
ever been laid. It
They're
insul-
poor. They're
it-
poor. Their shoes. They're
Yeah.
small. It looks pitiful. They're worn. It's a person's life lived wearing those shoes. Instant tears.
If you
not
look
for
at a
me,
lot
man.
of the false
Not for
flag,
me either, but
It's a bit when I saw Gene Simmons go to Anne Frank's house and start crying, and I was just like, "Oh my God!" There's Gene
my
Simmons
God, I
standing there
remember
with his
that.
centerfold wife crying because Anne Frank, lived in a fucking closet. Pardon my
wrote
French.
with a ballpoint pen.
Yeah, of course, of course. It's all beyond the logical pale.
Crow,
of the
I've been
course
to
of
that
human
place,
events.
bruv. I went to Anne Frank's place. It's like a huge penthouse apartment. It's absolutely.
I'm sure there's people living in like little closets in New York City who pay like $2,000 a month to live there that are like, man, and
Gee.
Frank had it good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we should do the modern retake. We can get someone called Frank, and he can't afford his New York apartment, so he's hiding in the walls, keeping a diary with landlords here. They're coming to get me.
Would you like some German occupation?
Yeah, really. Do the real version of how people live.
So I guess before we round out here, because I am winding down slowly but surely. I've been up since 3 a.m. I think we've all pretty well established that the new year springs with spring.
It should.
It should. So obviously they're screwing with the circadian rhythm, right? With our natural internal clocks. But it seems like there's got to be some other reason why they want everyone to steer clear of focusing their attention on the spring new year, and why they want everybody to focus that attention then into the dead of winter for their new year.
Well, first of all, their New Year's about gross materialism. It's also the allegory for hell. If we're talking Christmas, the winter solstice. But the point I would make is you've never been in real time your whole life. You don't even know what a circadian rhythm is, for crying out loud. In a real world, the time you got out of bed in the morning would usually depend on the sun, and the sun changes every day. That's not how we do it. When that clock hits 7 or 6 or whatever it's going to be, you're up. That is mechanically lifted you. Then when you get to daylight savings time, which of course happens at either equinox, they're completely jacking the system. But the point I would make is alchemy tells you everything. What is the sun? Well, that's the sulfur, right? Sulfur is the soul, S-O-L, soul, but we're saying S-O-U-L. And the one thing we know for certain about soul is it's conscious. Spirit is not conscious. Alcohol is not conscious, but you better beware of the spirits in the bottle, which is why they labeled it as such.
Yeah,
My
that's the
point
mercury.
being here is it's about human consciousness. And the very thing that we call the sun, soul, is conscious. And so they've done everything in their power to successfully remove people from time, because you cannot recognize the natural rhythms of a place. And, it's like a bit like trying to go surf in the ocean in the sand dunes where there are no waves. How can you know anything about cycles and waves in the middle of the desert? You can, because the sand will make waves, just gonna be a hell of a lot slower. Hope you live to be 1,000. The point here is that time is a critical key to tune your body back to nature, where there are no lies. So it's not really a mystery. And not only that, you can show who did it. The last person who did it was Pope Gregory the 13th. And if you look at their 12 big saints, Saint, who's January, Jason? Saint, I don't know, John. I'm guessing because I haven't looked at it in so long. But for the new year in January, I think it's Saint John, but I probably got it wrong. Maybe it's Peter. I don't know. It's the brother of Andrew. Well, why is this guy who represents the new year in January the brother of Andrew? Because Andrew is March, the original new year. That's why he's the brother of Andrew. And by the way, Andrew is imaged in front of the saltier cross, which is actually two compasses brought back to back. And that used to be called a goniometer, which you can't even define online anymore. And what that instrument does is measures the angle of the sunrise coming across the equator at the vernal equinox. That's what St. Andrew's standing in front of. So you know who did it, you know why they did it. It's for control. Babies are easy to control. It's about that simple.
Well, also this whole paying attention to the sky, the time, this all speaks back to the question Karen asked earlier about how would they have seen these anomalies, the double sun, any of that without technology. They paid attention. They weren't looking at screens. They weren't wrapped up in TV and drama and bills, and they lived by that sky. They lived by the land. So they built these, well, I say they built. At this point, I'm not sure if they didn't morph the rock somehow with energy, but anyway, they left monuments that speak to the importance of their attention to the sky. That's how people are seeing. That's how you saw what you saw, the wave. That's how Donnie from Daytona caught this weird sun anomaly. He saw it happening in the clouds, picked up his cell phone and caught it because we're paying attention. And they know we are. That's why they're throwing all these hit pieces out. And that's why all the attention you're getting on the new videos. I mean, it's all coming full circle.
Well, I would point out a thing, though, about we took a fall. There's no doubt we took a fall. That's what's being covered up. That's what's being hidden. The idea here from the mainstream is we had some nonsensical dark ages. Really? So we had a dark ages. Did China have a dark ages while we were having the dark ages? And by the way, did the people down in Barbados have a dark age while poor England was in it? It's all nonsense. And what it is a dividing line. So then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we go from mud huts because Rome fell and we lost everything we ever knew, apparently. And now all of a sudden, everyone's a genius because the Enlightenment is here. That was not Enlightenment. It was the exact opposite. It was the beginning of hypermaterialism. What they've covered was the natural human being before. And I would point out, how did I know that what happened in New Zealand is fake? I didn't read an article. I didn't see a video. How did I know? Because I have a sense of smell. That's how I knew.
It was
So a person back in the day wouldn't need a cell phone, if you get where I'm going here. As a matter of fact, the reason that we do have cell phones is so that we don't find our ability not to need them.
That's sort of like one of the things that I like to talk about is that part of this whole construct and everything that's sort of been put in place for us is that it's sort of disconnected us from our intuition. And it's like sort of, that's like what you're saying, like that's the smell test. It's your intuition. It's like,
well,
it's
women held on to it to some degree. Men lost it all the way.
well,
But that's because women were
some of them have it.
marginalized. And so they had to exercise that muscle if they wanted to know things, because, well, the men were in the smoking room. They were somewhere else wondering what the men were talking about. So they exercised that muscle and they kept the intuition.
And look what they're doing to them today.
Well, they're doing the gender blur, but they're also going to flip the whole board. Women are going to become the dominant experience, and the feminine's going to be all jacked up in the same way the masculine is, and nobody's going to quite know, what did David Bowie? Mom can't tell if she's a boy or a girl. That's where we're headed, and that goes in the face of the alchemist training, who understood that the cardinal has a male of the species and a female. Well, why? Because we need more cardinals. That's how it works, how it's always worked. And that is why the new Captain Marvel is female. That is why so many movies like Scarlett Johansson could kick the Hulk's ass, because it's this mental warping of the true roles of the male and the feminine. And the truth is that most of the time men are out of hand, and the feminine side of things is supposed to balance that out, or it goes too far. But when you start getting the women to buy into the male ideas, it's just more haywire.
I think we're going to be
not
able
a feminist.
Yeah, same as me. I don't think there's any women who are feminists in this awakening. What do you think, Karen?
Well, who would their examples be, though? I would ask. Is there a true natural feminist example? I mean, I imagine there are, but you'd probably have to go to India in a place without cell phones to find them.
Right.
It sure as hell ain't Captain Marvel. It sure as hell ain't Black Widow.
No.
Where is that example?
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
There you go. I'm not even sure she's female. No.
I've seen some videos.
I'm not even sure she's still alive.
Right. Well, there you go.
Sim 1.
All right. Well, gentlemen, we talked a little bit of alchemy. We didn't necessarily get into the spagyrics like John had wanted. But I'm pretty sure he's going to be super excited to hear that Phoenix is coming back on the show. So he's all subbed up over there on Crrow777radio.com. So he'll be able to check out both hours. I suggest everyone else go run over there and do the same.
You want to know how big a deal Phoenix was? He took March to move into a new house and quadruple or whatever it is the size of his lab, which is the whole first floor now, and that was on the back of one episode of our podcast. That's how thirsty people are for something that's not nonsense, and I couldn't be happier to support him. He's doing the best he can where we find ourselves. Not only that, he inherited most of the knowledge from the Utah school that used to be there.
So he's out in Utah?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. There was a school there, Frater Albertus, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, Frater.
Yeah.
But there's a whole drama that went on there. Apparently, Frater Albertus was the ladies' man to end all ladies' men and was having an affair with everybody. And that blew up in his face. And then there was a death that nobody's quite sure happened. But long story short, Phoenix Aurelius was the benefactor of a lot of that knowledge and even a lot of that equipment. And when you meet a man today who's planted his garden to the sky clock, who's harvested his garden to the sky clock, who collected his rainwater from the sky clock, and is actually making real spagyrics according to the ways that once were, it's a hell of a thing. You know, what else is worth supporting these days?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be checking.
Wait till we have Dr. Francolina on. See, this is going to come full circle, because Francolina has been doing the whole European thing where you actually could find a couple places doing spagyrics, and now we have a real spagyrist here in the United States. But we're about to do an episode on viruses that is going to make people's damn heads spin. You know, I said a long time ago, how can a virus be real if we have an electron microscope? Doesn't that imply anything bigger than an electron could be imaged? Show me the HD footage, please. And what we get is cartoons and artist renderings, and you know, maybe they went and got that Simmons dude who did the Earth from space, and he drew a flu virus for him.
Then we get the herpes virus in space, and they don't really explain much about it other than saying that astronauts are getting it. Well, we know they're not up there to begin with.
Space herpes.
So are they getting the space herpes because they're trying to tell us they're having sex up there? Or are they trying to tell us that when you're in space, you spontaneously break out with the herpes simplex virus?
Well, they see this is how they stack the deck. They put up all these possibilities, and I can imagine the outcome one day. We can't go to space anymore because the space herpes will just freaking kill you. Look at this guy, man. He lost an arm. You know, that's where it goes.
I was reading an article on it last night, and it was basically saying that they get stressed out from traveling to space, like going through the G forces to get out there and then being in zero gravity or whatever. Like it was stressing them out, and it was making the space herpes flare up.
They spontaneously burst a virus.
Yeah, right. You'd have to have the virus already, and I know people do, and sometimes it's suppressed, sometimes it isn't, but you don't just get it.
That is correct, guys.
This is how they're going to worm their way out of commercial space travel. They're going to make everybody think that if you go to do your commercial space travel trip, that it's going to stress you out.
I wish I could remember.
Like, nobody wants to go to space because we're going to get space herpes, so no more space travel.
I just remembered the first time I ever heard space herpes was by a comedian. I'm going to have to go try to track this down. Years ago, many years ago, the joke about space herpes, and if I'm not mistaken, it was based on the first Alien movie where the little ugly thing pops out of the stomach. You know, he's all quick, kill the space herpes, you know. But you see, this is what I realized. This is what I realized about the mud flood. The first time I ever heard the words mud flood was on Ancient Aliens. I had totally forgotten, and I wasn't buying into the mud flood. And everyone's giving me heat because I won't talk about the mud flood, and I'm not doing the damn mud flood. I'm sorry. I said I don't accept it. I'm trying to be polite to people who are probably looking at valid evidence and trying to figure things out. So I'm keeping my mouth shut. But the first time I ever heard the words mud flood was on Ancient Aliens, and that should tell everybody something.
Mm.
Yes,
And-
Walt, I heard that. Ice pirate.
Yeah, the ice pirates talked about space herpes, that cheesy.
Yeah.
Is that what it was? Is that where?
Yeah, it came from a cheesy
What year?
80s movie.
Robert Urich, I believe.
So wait a minute. NASA is now picking up on a comedy sketch from the 80s. It already tells you the validity of space herpes. I can smell it. Or is that the space herpes?
It smells like burning meat. Isn't that what one of the astronauts said space smells like? Burning.
Well, I
Yeah,
hear
because
there's
they
less- I
cracked
hear
the
there's
little
less
shield on
friction
the
in
helmet and took a
space.
whiff of space and then closed it back up, right?
Where that burning meat smells coming from.
It's also stupid. And the fact that people are buying this right and left, totally reasonable people bought the New Zealand thing. Totally reasonable people believed that there was a Tesla in space. Sometimes you just want to close your podcast or your channel because we are fighting against something that's been put in place that's so massive, but you can't quit. We can't quit.
I'm starting, when the Facebook crash happened, I don't know, a week ago, whatever it was, I could already smell what was going on. And it started more than a week before that. They were rolling out a new level of censorship. What they've done recently is try to go underground with it. Like, oh, it looks like I'm getting good hits and looks like everything's normal. Then you don't realize you're getting shadow banned and those 5 comments you think you just got don't exist. And the comment you just posted on someone else's channel, you can see it there, but no one else can. This is what was going on. And so I said to Jason, we were queuing up to do the Indonesian high school thing, where we were already, our minds were damn blown, because there's no high school in America that I could imagine where a senior teacher would take Crrow777 podcasts and assign his students to do reports on them, and then turn around and invite a guy like me into the school to speak with them. And so I get on Skype and I get an update the moment I get there. And by the way, almost every time I turn on Skype now, there's a new update. And by the way, it's back to you have to kill the process. It's running all the time again. But point is I said to Jason, as we're waiting for the teacher to come on, do you suppose he's going to get the update and it's going to block us, which is exactly what happened. Okay. So then we're using other tools, which we won't mention in public, I guess. And we finally get it established, beautiful audio until we get going 15 minutes and the audio to Indonesia starts to fall off. Then we turn around and do the Wayne episode on autism and vaccines. Wayne's computer for the first time rebooted, I don't know, Jason was like 10 times, 10 times.
6, I think. Yeah.
Six times. And we can't Skype, we can't do anything. So we have to do a big workaround again. But meanwhile, when we finally get the connection, we're getting ready to go. And Wayne goes, okay, everyone got the notes? I'm all, what notes? I didn't get notes. He's all, well, I sent you notes at 5:30. It's like 2 hours later. Nobody got the notes. So we're all sitting there going, wait a minute, you sent notes. Check your, yep, they were sent. Nobody got the notes. So he sends them again and we get the notes. To this day, I never got the notes that he sent at 5:30. What's going on now is the moment a communication leaves your box to go to the ISP, it's already been scanned. It's why Google Gmail takes so long to come or go. They're scanning and duplicating everything. But what that means at a certain level of sophistication is that they can easily control that they know these people are totally whole hog into the New Zealand nonsense, so they can comment all over the internet whenever they want. But all these other people who they've already intercepted emails and communications saying New Zealand's nonsense, they're not communicating anywhere. They think they are, but they're not. And that's kind of where we're headed here, because their first run at censorship in the fall of 2017 didn't go over so well.
At this point, I'm almost convinced that we are all being fed exactly what we need to be fed to keep us right where they want us.
Of course.
Because of
about.
I've asked people in the general public, they don't know there's a freaking Tesla in space. I'm like, really? I didn't know that. We're paying attention to it, so we're getting these stories. I think that's part of what this whole thing is to keep us all. Somebody this morning on our show asked, what would we all be looking at if we weren't looking at all this flat earth stuff? Where would our attention be? What truth would we really be on?
Well, you guys know how I do my best to avoid the the breadcrumb. I join nothing. I look at nothing. Jason does almost all the online research. I randomly, we don't plan an episode more than a week or two in advance. So it's kind of hard to seed me out that far. And since I'm going to probably end up with old books that I had to cover it or other books that I'm going to get, that's the game. You either be you or you, I don't know, morph into part of something else that you had no. It's a bit like becoming a Republican. Is that your idea? Or is that someone else's idea? Well, why don't you just be a Democrat? That's your idea, right? No, that's not your idea. Well, maybe you can be an independent. That's your idea, right? No, man, none of those are your idea.
Yeah, I don't dwell inside of a box. When they say check one of these boxes, I put my check outside of it. So there you go.
When they tell me to check one of these boxes, I say, "What boxes?"
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't recognize your boxes.
I don't recognize your 90-degree angles.
Yeah, I had to fill out the paperwork for the first time in a long time. Oh, I dreaded every letter I had to write. It's like, God, this is just such a waste of my time right now.
Just give me my life credits and leave me alone.
So here's my prediction for the next 20 years. There is going to come a time, if something big doesn't change, when there's absolutely no difference between education and entertainment. I think that's going to be the benchmark for successful idiocracy.
Edutainment.
Yeah, at the point where you can no longer tell the difference between entertainment and education, you'll know you're in the brave new world.
And here's how you know it's already happening, because how often on regular crap news is celebrity news?
Yeah,
that's news. That's what so and so did with so and so. That's news. That's not news.
You go to space.com and they're showing, oh, this week 20 years ago Star Trek did this. It's like, who cares about Star Trek? You're space.com. You're not entertaining today.
I went to the Johnson Space Center, right? And when you walk in, the first damn thing you see is the mock-up of the Galileo shuttle from Star Wars 1. And I just stood there, and there were 3 people with me. And I said, if this is serious science, what business does this Hollywood prop have in here? And people were all looking at me, and I wasn't making any apologies, but that is, it's the proof in the pudding. I'll tell you what, of all the movies that have come out, one of the very few movies that I've actually gone to see in a theater in like forever was Ready Player One, because I understood what it was going to be.
I read the book.
Yeah, so did I. It's not too far. It's not too far off the money. And I think the most dangerous thing that the generations behind us are going to face is VR. That is going to be
right.
Everything than cocaine, alcohol, all of it wrapped up.
No need to do anything. It's almost like the old heroin dens.
Well, they already know. Yeah, they already know how to make your brain react from a television as if it's on opiate. So you can already figure it. The VR is just a little bit better, than real life to the virtual, the digital.
Yeah, there's no getting away from it. You can't look away.
Well, not only that, once you feel marginalized, in VR, you could be Superman today if you want. You could date a supermodel if you're a young geeky boy who has trouble in social situation. It's going to be a hell of a test, VR. And for my part, I'm not, I almost broke my rule because I wanted to do some sky stuff, because VR is so handy for mocking up certain sky things, but I decided I'm not doing it. I'm not ever going to expose my brain to VR.
Yeah, we've got some guys that we're in contact with that do a lot of sky watching in their 360 cameras.
Yeah, I saw that. Those are the guys I was talking to.
Yep. And
Z Proxy.
That's exactly right. Z Proxy, Cosmic Surfer, and help me out. This is going to kill me.
Dan Smith.
Thanks. Kick me in the ass. I even went and bought a couple of VR headsets trying to get one that would actually work well. And I've never managed to get one. I've never actually experienced anything truly in VR, but I think I'm right there with you. I don't know that I'm going to want to go down that rabbit hole.
Well, if you watch The Matrix and you're not interested in sleeping in a gooey pod, it's the modern equivalent, isn't it?
I just learned kung fu.
Show me.
Show me.
Jason, I was thinking, I lived in New Orleans for quite a while, and I don't know if you've looked at venues. Since you're in that area, you probably have looked at things, but a particularly nice venue, but it might be a larger capacity than what you might be expecting. The Sanger Theater. Have
Oh,
you
you get out of my head.
on Canal Street?
Yes,
It's so
yes.
beautiful. It
That's
does.
not the one that's been recommended to me, actually. I've not heard that one yet.
Well, how many people are you? Well, of course, you're hoping for 5,000 people or more. But realistically, how many people for the
We don't
premiere?
know. We don't have any clue yet.
That's the problem. I'm going to have to do some kind of big Facebook blast to say, I need to know really how many folks we're realistically going to have here so I know what size venue to get. I'll pay for whatever size venue people will show up for. I don't have a problem shelling out the money for this premiere. I'm not going to shell out for a gorgeous place, which I would love to have it in, and then have 15 people there or something like that.
This one's at 2,600. It's 2 levels. It's a lot, I know, but
I would love that though. That'd be amazing.
So beautiful, and was built in 1927. It's just visually gorgeous and not mainstreamy looking. You know what I mean?
That's exactly what I want. The two that
Right.
have been recommended to me so far is the Zeitgeist Theater and the Britannia.
Okay, both of those are good as well. Britannia Theater is really good because it's an old-fashioned movie theater with red velvet seats. Still has that same vibe. That would have been one of the only theaters. It's in the Uptown area, and that's one of the only theaters I would really go to because it didn't have, I don't even think they sold Coca-Cola. They didn't have commercials playing. I mean, who knows what they do now, but at that time it was very independent. And I, even way back before I got involved in this, when I lived in New Orleans, I still was super out of the matrix as much. Back then I thought I was, but I obviously wasn't. But you know what I'm saying? I was still on the trail where I am now.
Yeah, it's all going to come down to what the realistic capacity is going to need.
Britannia sounds good though. Zeitgeist is cool too. It's a little more cold and clinical inside. Well, I don't know because
It's smaller. That's the reason why I was listening to what people were telling me and choosing. Okay, if I'm only going to get a small amount, then this is better. If I'm going to get a larger amount, then this is better.
So this year, go with the Britannia, and next year when you do the next film, then fill the Sanger. People will be lined up for the second showing.
Well, speaking of that, we already have a second film in mind.
Oh wow!
Ooh, yeah. What are you thinking?
I'll leave that up to Crow if he wants to discuss it yet.
We should probably wait, Jason.
I can take it. I was
You know
really
what?
efficient. I wasn't expecting an answer, but I can appreciate.
You know what happens. You know what happens.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, there's a group that I met up with last year in New Orleans at the bridge or at the park by the bridge to do some videos, and they know a lot of people. And between them and maybe some people you still know in the area, Patricia, there's no way that we shouldn't be able to at least get some kind of feelers out over the next couple of weeks to get some general number that might give you an idea.
Jason, you should post the film email address so that you can get communication with all these.
I've already put it in our description of the show here.
I see it. Okay. So I mean, if people want to do things like that, that's a big deal. The initial first time, it's a bit stressful. You don't know who's going to show up. You don't know how the film's going to be received. You don't know any of these things. But if that at least can go off smoothly with a number of people, that would be a good harbinger for what's to come. And again, of the old film reels of the new discovered video that was made digitally. So then they'll of course they'll produce something, but then you just kind of casually hold it up to the light and say, "Wait a minute, man, this is Felix the cat. The hell are you trying to pass off
Bart
here?"
Sabrell?
This is an old Prel commercial.
Yeah.
I heard someone say that we all have heard that they've lost the telemetry data. They lost the footage. I've heard that they've also said they had to record over it because of budgetary problems.
I've heard both of those.
Yeah.
So which one is it? Those are two very different
Two
things.
different things,
Which
and
is
both of them are
so
impossible.
ridiculous.
I heard
They're
the
both
record over
ridiculous.
first before I heard it was lost. I heard that it was recorded over. That
Okay, so
for
They're
me, that was-
recording over an old medium when they have a new medium that takes up way less space. Like, it doesn't even make any sense.
Sam's greatest achievement,
Yeah.
So in the
Recorded.
70s, nobody thought to back that up.
It was Shark Week.
what cracks me up is okay. So Werner von Braun was a genius, and he was responsible for all the tech, right? He did the Saturn V's, everything about them, best rockets ever made in the world. We lost the blueprints, but you see, in the age we live now, we can 3D scan anything. It would be there's nothing that possibly could have been built since the dawn of man that can't be pieced together with what we have at our disposal now. It's just beyond the pale. What it's, you know what it is? It's the Gilligan's Island problem. That's what this is. Everyone was so
they
well
claim they
programmed
destroyed
by
the blueprint.
Gilligan's Island. Well, it's authority. Well, the authorities told me this, so that's got to be true, right? Gilligan's Island taught you how to
Gotta
think
be.
that way.
Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, the professor.
Well, it taught us all how to think that way. If there's a science problem, professors got to answer it. If there's a call of leadership on the island, well, then the skipper's got to make it. There's rich people, so of course they do whatever the F they want, and that's that. And of course, the girls need to be making the pies at lunchtime. That's the Gilligan's Island mind matrix, right?
Yep, I can see it. Everybody gets a label.
Gilligan wears red, the skipper wears blue. It's all the same.
And Ginger's got red hair.
I think that might have been a carefully crafted name, but I'm just
Wait,
guessing.
we have a redhead and a brunette on right now. What's going on? What's going on?
We're gonna, between Karen and I, we're getting you off this island, everyone.
I have no
forget the
idea what
brunette's
you
name.
Americans are on about.
Yeah, not with your body. I'm just saying, if you're leaving here, something's staying behind.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So why don't we go ahead and round out then? As much as I'm enjoying this, I know.
No, I don't want it to end at all. It really could go on all night, though. So I guess we have to pull the plug at some point.
We really ought to.
It's been really fun.
Marianne. I just
Ginger.
remembered.
Ginger and Marianne. That's
Ginger
you and me.
Marianne,
Right now.
I'm sorry. I thought we were all there. My bad.
I'm
You know,
sorry.
more people.
I
like
forgot, and
Marianne
then once
than
I
Ginger.
remembered I had to say it, I apologize.
No, that's perfect. That's one of those.
Adam's still lost over there across the pond. It's like, what are they on about?
In England, you don't understand references to Gilligan's Island. Is that even true?
I've heard the name. As for any of the detail and what the subtle nuances of roles meant,
You're kind of lucky, actually, because it was kind of a stupid show, to be honest.
It was a little bit
You know
better
what's
than
really
the original
funny?
Star Trek, but not much. They actually, really, it's so annoying because by the third episode, you're wondering why no one's killed Gilligan yet.
Right.
You know
Or-
what's really funny is as far as like Ginger and Marianne goes, like Patricia being Ginger and being like, you know, very stylish and classy. Like she fits that role. And like Marianne,
it's
I'm like
perfect.
down home country girl. I'm
Right,
like,
it's
yeah,
perfect.
it totally works.
We need a skit now. We're going to use Mark Sargent as the captain, right? Who's going to be Gilligan? Only because Mark wears a hat. Captain wore a hat. I don't know who Gilligan will be. But
Well, it's got to be me.
okay, well, good.
All right, that's it, man. I'm out.
We've got professors left and right here.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
make like a Canadian and get out.
Dude. All right, man. Thank you so much, Crow. This has been awesome.
Yeah,
we-
right on. I hope you guys are able to powwow with Jason. I'm gonna be tied down for a period of time, at least until the summertime. But I think
Could
there's
you guys-
possibilities here. I think there's a real possibility that there could be some positive reaction to all this, but I equally think that I'm not certain that we're there yet. And so the number of sober-minded people who take an interest is going to be all the more help.
Could you guys drop the information for Phoenix into the live chat? Somebody? Do any of us have that?
Hold on. Yeah, give me 2 seconds. Actually,
Yeah,
I need to make sure I
quite
give you the right one. Just a second. Phoenix. Because he has a couple going. So his private one, I probably don't want to hand out. So
just so everybody knows, Crow has sampled the wares from Mr. Phoenix Aurelius, and they do indeed work. They do what they are supposed to do.
best I've ever seen. All right, so this would be the contact, and if you drop my name, you like literally get 40%. Well, he's got some coupon thing, but if you drop Crrow777, he'll give you like a discount.
Yeah, I'm looking more along the line of going
Drop the
to
price.
school.
Yeah, that's what we need. If we can
Learning.
figure out what it's going to cost to get Zach in that school, and we will do our damnedest to make.
Right. That would be.
You want to go to that school, Zach?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
You know, I'm a close personal friend of Phoenix Aurelius.
that's wild, man.
So if you put in a good
Zach-
word for us,
Zach is the
Is-
perfect person to send to that.
Oh my God! Is he not? Karen?
Perfect
Is he
person.
not?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, he is. Because I've watched him and
Yes.
his live streams with his alchemy and everything. Yes, he gets it. He totally gets it.
He lives it. So that's what it's all about.
Well, if he goes through that school, he'll be a little bit brighter than everyone else, you know, too.
Say something, Crow,
His
mate.
knowledge won't be questionable.
He's
Right.
already a little bit brighter than most of the people.
Thank you,
we know,
Karen. That's
honestly.
exactly correct. He shines a little bit brighter than most. Absolutely.
And
This-
tries his best to hide it under a freaking
Being
basket.
Yeah,
somewhere
and
for
he's
some
very
reason.
humble. He's a very good person.
Are you a
Great.
cannabis guy?
yes, I am.
Medicinal or otherwise?
Absolutely. Yeah, medicinal, recreational. I prefer to have some CBD in it. I like to, take it for.
I take CBD every night. I swear by it. CBD is the miracle drug, and I don't like, which is ironic considering that I spent all of my youth smoking Lord knows how many tons of pot. I can't stand to be high anymore. I could see through the veil too darkly, and I can't take it. So unfortunately, I swear by the CBDs, but I understand that full potency isn't reached unless you do the THC thing, but I don't like being high.
Yeah, I mix them, but yeah, no, cannabis it's an amazing.
It's the be all and end all.
Yeah,
It is the foundation of the pharmacopoeia we lost.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm using
100%.
CBD too, but not THC. And in my past had gotten high, like occasionally, like in the distant past, but I'm so not interested in that now.
Do you get high on the CBDs at all without the THC?
No, I
Because
don't.
I did. I've worked up my tolerance now. But even the CBD with no THC in it, I
You're
can't.
very sensitive then. Well,
Well,
I
actually,
can't-
even if you've got a high tolerance, I found that it affected me if it was a really
or maybe I'm just insensitive.
extracted.
What do you mean
It builds
affected
up
you?
your
Like
tolerance to it, though. Maybe
you mean made you feel high affected you?
made me very relaxed, and I definitely had change, and I
Yeah,
was shocked.
because everyone
Shocked.
describes it like this. There's no psychoactive element left, so it's
No, you're not
body
high. It's
But
not
what they call it is a body high. But you see, to me, that's not wholly correct way. It's not like I'm wasted, psychoactively wasted,
Nope.
but at the same time, it's not like I'm not high either.
Yeah, that's it. It's really a hard place to get to the description of the.
It's
effect.
not fair for me, from my experience, to just say it's a body high. It is that, but I'll tell you what, the curative power of CBD is proof positive that now that they're legalizing everything, people better be hoarding seeds like bandits, because it will be short order before the Monsantos and other people of the world have tried to decimate the cannabis crop. I think they're going to have trouble with this one because I don't think you'll ever meet a more dedicated horticulturist in this world, unless it's an orchid collector that is passionate about their plant. And so I imagine, maybe they'll be able to save it, but it's going to be a shame.
Yeah, they've already started with the GMO and all that, just genetically, and the hemp seeds especially. They're starting to grow them in Indiana, but it has to be a small farm, and it's all on a test-based period, and it's all genetically modified garbage.
No, you guys have to. Everyone who's into this stuff, like potheads of the world, unite. Like, say no in mass.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's not a small group of people.
They're not going to let this go, because basically CBD is the cure of everything. If people look at Rick Simpson, one dude, right? And you can see the result of what one dude did there. And he wasn't even pushing that hard. He was just being himself. Point is if we knew a few more people like Phoenix Aurelius and a few more people who are growing the best dope on the planet, you're looking at medications that potentially stop tumors, cancers. Who knows? People have had autistic children get their speech back from just CBDs. And that is not going to be allowed to fly in the world we currently exist in. But I maintain again, you're not allowed to understand how many people were outraged by the censorship. And that's why it's gone underground, which is a bit more scary. But it also shows people that if they just quit being a bunch of sissies and stand up for what's correct, there's a result. You can get results. The fact that I have a channel is proof, because they took me out lock, stock, and barrel.
And that really is amazing that they would have gifted your channel back to you. It really does show the
They
power.
gifted it back to me with a
Copyright strike. Here you go.
And it wasn't even mine. It was Greg Carlwood's. That's what killed me.
Hey, you got to remember who you are.
They just felt guilty. They're all, oh, we better let this crow asshole know his channel's back. Someone send him a strike.
That's awesome. So that is a good reminder that you are right now on YouTube at the Crrow777. You are on Truth Frequency Radio on Sundays at, what is that, 8 p.m. your time?
6 p.m. Eastern Standard, EST. So New York time, 6 p.m.
Gotcha.
We also air on the Fringe FM. We air our hour ones a couple times a week. They play us. And Joe Roop, who runs the Fringe, is actually a really cool dude. If you guys aren't familiar with him, you should reach out to him and say hello. He is an awesome guy and very supportive of what we do as well. Really nice dude.
And lastly, we have Crrow777radio.com, which may end up being the, you know how the Cowboys supposedly built all those forts to fend off the attack? That's probably what Crrow777 Radio will become.
I was going to say, you've got some big plans, don't you?
F-Troop.
Well, we're not backing down, in for a penny, in for a pound. We're going to the mat here. This is all or nothing. I'm not gonna just be a person who rolls over and watches all this happen.
I'll be sending as many good vibes your guys' ways as I can, for sure. You guys have always been. Well, Crow, you were the one that got all this started and kicked off for me.
Oh, me too, brother.
How many people I've heard say that? I've done interviews and they've said that they saw the lunar wave and that changed their life.
Yeah.
That's what all you guys are really, truly, that's what you're saying when you saw the lunar wave. Because this is what happened. You may or may not know this. So Jason and I, back when I was still conversant with the Jungle Surfer, we were having him on and we hadn't gone live recording yet. And he says to Jason and I, you guys know, I think you should, or don't you, that 30 days after the 2012 lunar wave was posted, the Flat Earth movement started. And Jason and I were kind of like, come on. He's all, no, I'm not kidding. So as we're sitting there, I'm looking it up and we found it to be true. And then later, this other place was interested in getting content from us. And they looked it up and said the same thing. So we knew it had been confirmed. But you see, when you're saying the exact same thing, is that, and correct me if I'm wrong. So you see a piece of footage like that, and all of a sudden it dawns on you, and maybe I truly don't understand what the moon is. So now, if you don't understand, the whole goal of that, by the way, my stated goal back when I did that is I said, if I could get someone to question what they know about the moon, I could get them to question anything. So is that basically what happened? Really? I mean, for real?
Yes.
Yeah,
True story.
absolutely.
Yes.
I was
Oh.
going to NASA websites daily, checking the Soho and Lascaux and Secchi satellites. I was going to the Canada French telescope in Hawaii and watching their. I mean, I was all about NASA and deep space and all this stuff. And then I saw yours. I was like, oh my God, I'm so stupid.
Are you kidding me?
No, not at all.
But
a lot of people.
How did you know? How did you know? You know, no one knew me. How
No,
did
but
you?
it was,
How did you know?
when you explained it, because
Sniff test.
Yeah, the sniff test. I went with my gut.
It was
When you
authentic.
speak, yeah, it's authentic. It's not scripted. It's not, you seem like a real person. And you were unsure of yourself at first. Because I was watching you before the lunar wave even. And then when you said, wow, look at this now. Now I'm sure 100% me panning the camera confirms it. You were just getting ready to erase it, weren't you?
Well, I did actually delete it, and that was the act that gave me the epiphany that night when it dawned on me all at once. You freaking idiot! You're a digital dude, and the camera pan proves it that that's a filmed event. There's not only does it prove it, it's undeniably a filmed event. So see, this is the whole thing. Can you imagine the providence in how that happened?
It was meant to be.
Imagine I'm at the scope looking for basically UFOs going across the moon, looking at a 3-inch LCD, and I break the one rule I have that I will always stay centered on the moon so I don't miss anything. Because if I sit out there for 8 hours and miss something, I'm going to be upset about it. And for some reason, I pan down for no reason at all. The wave starts, don't see it, pan up, and it catches. And I think, oh, well, crap, something's failing. And I reach over to push the delete button, which every time I ever did that in my entire life, the clip was deleted. I didn't delete it. Then I brought it in and it bothered me and it bothered me and it bothered me. And I looked at it and I looked at it. Finally, I said, to hell with this, man. And I deleted it. And then that night it was like, ding. But just think of the providence of how that was even filmed. I mean, to the second kind of choreography that was required to prove that was, if I had just been a locked shot. Rule.
Yeah.
If I had just had a locked shot, there would have been no way to prove that was a filmed event.
I wish you could go back and remember what's going through your mind, which made you think to pan down and move it.
I had a very weird feeling, but at the same time, I was overriding it with my own psyche, thinking my camera is failing right now. But it was a very strange feeling. For a while, for a long time, I considered, could this be a download? Is this like, some kind of a download? It was right at the equinoxes. What's weird about it, so for the year before that, I'm trying to get everyone to pay attention to equinoxes. That happened on the equinox. So what's the providence in that?
Yeah.
That's wild. It's like sometimes you end up in a role that probably you have very little to do with. Maybe my whole qualification for this is because I can speak and I'm in the right place at the right time. You don't know. It's not like this was all planned carefully to the T. Well, it kind of is now, but that's not how it started.
And I'm sure you never would have guessed that you would be where you are today.
Well,
when that happened,
today may not be the best example.
Well, Charlie, I told you when you came on the show the first time, and as you said, we got a little late and it got a little fringy and we all were indulging a bit. So memory is maybe a little fuzzy, but certainly I was just like Zach. Space, UFOs, that's the only thing I would watch is music videos and some UFO stuff. I wasn't looking at even any other conspiracy stuff. And here I'm watching I'm watching Take Back Space. I'm out there with my little crap telescope, my little attachments on my phone, trying to just get some good pictures. And there's weird stuff going on. I'm seeing weird things, and I go looking on YouTube to figure out what it is. And there's your lunar wave stuff suddenly. And it's like, okay, this is cool. And I'm like him, same deal. Watch it develop, watch you figuring it out, thinking it's a refresh rate, thinking it's, hologram sky. I went down that whole rabbit hole with you. Suddenly here comes the suggested flat earth crap, and I'm like, no, not in 2014. No, this is not real. People aren't really thinking.
So you guys think that because
Your fault, Crow. It's your fault. Yes, we're telling. No,
well, no, honestly, do you think that the 2012 lunar wave had such an impact that it's directly relatable to people deciding, wait a minute, maybe we better look at everything more carefully here?
Yes.
without a doubt. Not to blow your head up, your ego too bad there, but without a
It was
doubt.
a paradigm
I
shift
don't
for me.
have an ego
for sure.
anymore, man. I gave it
No,
up.
I know you do. I know you do,
I
man.
gave it up for something else that didn't have value. Well, that's kind of a trip, but I would point out, can you consider if that accidental September night in 2012 never happened? And so let's say that it happened this coming September. Can you imagine? Nothing, it would never have the chance of being what it became now. It would be shadow banned. It would be all these things. As a matter of fact, when they deleted my YouTube channel, when I was like at 100,000 subs or something like that, they deleted it because of a lunar wave video. We had just done the Vegas nonsense shooting, which was the real reason, I think. But they cited a lunar wave video, and for the longest time, since they deleted my channel, I didn't even know which one it was. It was this other dude who shot it and sent me the footage and said, "Will you run it? I shot this lunar wave." So it wasn't even my footage. But at the end of the day, that happened in 2017, and so I posted it for the first time in 2013. If you did a Crrow777 search the day before they deleted my YouTube channel, there's a few million returns, millions and millions. The day that I came back, 6,000 returns. To this day, if you do a search for Crrow777, it's 80 to 100,000. If you search a lunar wave, you can still clear 1 million. But if you put my name in lunar wave, it goes back down to about 20,000. So my point here is, if someone out in the world has done something that makes the lunar wave look like, baby diaper work, would it even be possible for the world to see it?
To even see it anymore? No.
Or for that matter, the next talented mind, next talented speaker with ideas that matter, to build a channel that matters now. Because basically, if you're not kicking someone in the nuts or playing with a hula hoop, you ain't clearing 20,000 subs these days.
We just hit 2,000 after 2 years.
Go kick someone in the nuts, man. You'll get up to 30 in no time at all.
Yeah. I think I got to sacrifice some more to do that, though.
Kick Neil deGrasse Tyson in the nuts.
I don't think Neil deGrasse Tyson has nuts. I think they went away with Pluto.
The one now who deserves it is Logan Paul.
Oh, boy, you were in my head tonight, Patricia. I was about to say there's a pair of nuts I'd like to kick right now. But
who is Logan Paul?
That's a good question.
Exactly.
And you don't need to know.
Don't even find out.
No.
Stop right there.
Freaking, that's
Just stop right there.
All right, I won't put my eyes in.
He's a YouTube sensation from what, 13 to 17-year-old boys, probably.
I didn't know who he was either. I had to look him up, and I was like, "Why is this guy anything?" This
Right,
like
I had to look him up the night that Mark had a fit about it. Right.
To move the away from Logan Paul, if I could, guys.
No.
Please.
I'd love it just to pull it back if I could. I heard something that, and just we were talking about Zach being a role as an alchemist, and I don't know if you guys know, but I'm fairly well qualified in the world of pharmacology and the likes, and thought I knew it all. But from meeting Zach, taught me what the meaning of alchemy was, and I don't just mean reading the books. I mean demonstrating and living it. And Crrow, if you do have any influence with the gentleman, the proprietor, curator, whatever, owner of the school, whatever it is, I would urge you to really do your best to express that influence on him, because I can't think of a more worthy person.
I second that motion fully.
So basically, you guys are saying Zach needs to get in.
Oh, stop!
I'm saying you come back to us with a figure, and we'll make it happen.
Yeah,
you just put the good word in for him with Phoenix, and we'll do the rest.
All right, email me, Zach, and we'll see what we can get done here. But basically, when Phoenix showed up on the show, it was the right place at the right time, and he saw way more benefit from my channel than I ever do. Put it that way. But that's okay. You know, if you speak to enough people and you realize that you're just the sucker who shot something that helped change so many things, in a way, that's your payment right there.
See, I don't think this stuff is an accident. Personally, I don't.
No,
I
it's
agree.
it's
There's
absolutely not.
No, there's no
That's what I'm trying to
coincidence.
point out.
Yeah.
That what put me here for the full year, at least a year. I could go back and look. I was talking all about equinoxes and this and that, and what a critical thing it was. And then I shot the lunar wave, and it was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days off the stated equinox, which at the time I didn't know any better. But a year and a half ago, we figured out it was actually an equinox night that I shot the lunar wave on. And the whole time I was convinced that if we got to an equinox, we'd have a better chance of filming it. And lo and behold, I'm the second guy to film it. It's a year and a half later near the vernal equinox. Point being is those are not solely my ideas. And to pan the camera, that's not solely my providence. There's more than this, is what I'm pointing out. And maybe there's 10 guys in line, and the one that's most feasible ends up being the one. Who knows? But it's not because you're special, I don't think. I think it's because you can do certain things that you can do, and you're there at the right time. I think that's probably wholly what it's about. Because when it's time for a thing to be known, have you ever noticed how it happens all at once?
Yeah.
Like the double sun thing. It's time for that to be known. And it's not because I came up with it, because I didn't come up with it. I might get recognized a little more if I come out and talk about it. But the point is, if that's a valid idea, the time for everyone to think about it and know things about it is all of a sudden now for some reason. That's completely independent of me. I shot that in 2016 and didn't know any damn better. So how is it that I make it to 2019 before I do know any damn better?
So all of this awakening and all its many facets, all of us together on this panel, or who are watching it or in chat or will watch it later, we all at this time, whether we like each other or not, have somehow been drawn to this topic. And I don't imagine that it could have happened really any earlier or at any different time.
No,
it's
probably
a combination
not.
of technology and something else.
It's time. It's time. And as little as I talk about this, because I don't think people are ready, the sun is conscious. It's what it is. The sun is conscious. And right now the sun has changed. When I first looked at the sun, there was all this surface detail. It had more pigment, more yellowy, orangey, all these prominences. And now Jason just shot it yesterday. It's completely smooth with one tiny little dot on it. It's whiter than a ghost these days, but that is why they're blocking it. They're blocking the influence. And what people have been trained so thoroughly is that, oh, you pagan idiot, you worship the sun. No, that's not what this is about, dude. Go out into your garden and look at your basil first thing in the morning. Look what it's doing. Now look at it at noon. Now look at it at sundown. Each one of those times, because of the sun, that basil will be doing a different thing. In the morning, it'll be respiring. You'll see the little drops from its respiration on its leaves. And then by noon, at the peak of the day, and then it's the sun is the dancing fiddle that we all dance to. Basically.
What about the moon and the
that too? Absolutely. It's the battery idea, negative and positive. But from where I stand now, it's the moon and the sun are likely, what we see are likely coming from the same source, but that source too is driven by our minds. Partially, we contribute to this reality, which is why fear porn does what fear porn does, because when everybody's afraid, we have this dismal sense of hopelessness that everyone feels right now. If people would quit looking at the news and believing in these lies, that dismal sense would lift. And so it is the as above, so below idea, but it's much more than that simplistic idea puts forth. But if there is truly some validity to the second object I filmed, then I would estimate that's a bit like every way you've ever seen the all-seeing eye drawn, and every way from a Masonic tracing board you've ever seen the all-seeing eye, like a hole in the clouds. There's light coming through, which is powering our sun and our moon that we see, and then it always shows the light coming down to us from the moon and sun we see, but like little angels will be holding lenses, right? And the light will go through the lens. That's what's going on here. But at the end of the day, if people would get back to nature and back to the old philosophical principles, they would understand certainly that sulfur is conscious and soul is sulfur. And the soul in your body is spelled slightly different to fool you than the SOL, soul in the sky, which is spelled slightly different to fool you than the SON of the church. It's all the same game reiterated in 1,000 different ways with a simple vowel swap to fool the masses.
Maybe even the soul, this is a crazy dumb one, but the soul of all the shoes that are used in the
It's
Holocaust.
the same idea. No, it's the same
Yeah.
idea. Because that's consciousness. They're affecting consciousness with those images, right?
Yeah.
Soul, consciousness. It's all mercurial in its application, and it also proves that the people who put out the big movies and put out the media, they've never lost track of any of this. How could they? For Marty McFly to show up at Twin Pines Mall and play the inverted 9 game, it's proof. There's no denying these things. Can anyone look at Back to the Future anymore and rationally decide that it's not pre-echoing the coming 9/11 some 22 years later?
You wonder what movies are out now. I don't really watch movies like I used to anymore because of all the programming. It hurts my soul. There we go. But I wonder what movies are out now that there's something in them that's forecasting something that we don't even know what they're.
I would say
Marvel Universe.
All of them, and the most important are going to be the crappy movies, the B movies. You can go look up. Someone started a thread on my site that pointed out how many A-list actors did their first horror film, was how they got into Hollywood. First film's a horror film. You will always see the important ideas passed off in shitty movies because nobody takes a crappy movie seriously. It's about like Sim 1 with Al Pacino. It's maybe the worst Al Pacino movie you've ever seen in your life. But the idea being expressed there is critically important. But you can take this both ways. Which Marvel movie didn't pre-echo? Winter Soldier is a classic example of making fun. The 20th century is an open book. There was a dude who lived in the 30s who wrote an algorithm which taught us how to read this book. We just didn't have the data back then. In other words, we know everything about everybody all the time now because of the digital nature of our world and the algorithms that were written back in Nazi Germany, supposedly in the 30s. These things are flaunted over and over and over. They're not telling you lies, they're telling you truths, but it's wrapped up in this fancy schmancy movie. But you go look at all the B movies, which is less of a thing now. It's not the same as it used to be. Like if you watch Svengoolie, those kind of movies, like if you want to understand something about Blue Bloods, go watch all the old vampire movies that Svengoolie plays, all those old Count Dracula movies. Telling you all kinds of stuff that people will never believe in because it's way too outlandish to even think about seriously. But here's a good example. Idiocracy. What do you think Idiocracy is about? It's one of the worst movies you'll ever see. But the point is it's true as gold.
Yeah,
that idea ain't gonna tarnish.
Yeah.
Cabin
Look at their
in the
president.
Woods.
Former WWE champion, former porn star, this and that. And look at our president today. He was on the WWE at one time smacking Vince McMahon in the face. He supposedly slept with some porn star and this and that and yada, yada, yada. We're already halfway there.
Yeah, we're well down the road. But we're also at a cusp of where people are trying to regain common sense. If we could just regain a modicum of common sense. The Tavistock, when we did research, I don't know, a year or two ago, the early Tavistock research, and Tavistock's own words claimed that the hardest generation to program was going to be what's called the greatest generation, which would be my grandparents, right? So people born in the early 1900s. And the reason they cited that they would be the hardest to program, social engineer, is because they had not grown up with television. And they further stated that each generation that goes by that is more exposed will be more easily programmed. And this is the proof in the pudding, isn't it? And so what that shows is that really the main thing that's been lost in all of this is not a thing that we can't get back. It's just a thing we don't have at the moment. It's called common sense. You know, my grandparents would never have spent a dime on a thing that should only cost a nickel. And they sure as hell weren't, here's another thing people don't know about the people from that generation. Did you know that they wouldn't even take aspirin when it was first introduced because they were so suspicious of pills? But look where we are now, man.
Yeah, my grandma never took any of that stuff.
My grandfather had exactly 0 inoculations in his life, and now 80 to 100 are on the CDC schedule for any human being from the time they're born to the time they drop.
Now you're made fun of.
Yeah.
If you don't do inoculations, your society polices you. If you don't take medications,
they can try all they want, but that's the other thing about alchemy. You know, I chose that thing I read because he's talking about a critical thing. He's saying in the plant, someone told me that this can dissolve the ego. Well, I don't have to believe them because I know alchemy. I can test it right now. And he did. And he said, you're right. We can dissolve the ego. Well, guess what? I'm no damn different than the plant. I'm a human being with an ego. So what did the plant process tell us about ourselves? And so that works on so many levels, because you can't be shamed by society if you don't have the ego to be ashamed of, right?
Absolutely.
So that's the difference. And much of this it works on shame, shaming people, shouting them down. That's Trump's whole ballywick, teaching people how to shout someone down.
Bullying.
Trying, but.
Well, this is a self-governing system now. I've been saying that for a long time.
Yeah, right.
But wouldn't that be called homeostasis? We need to get Wayne in here, man.
And isn't the real self-governing system the sun and the moon?
Well, you would, I think, but that's the thing. You ever notice, I heard you guys talking about it before we came in, how many flat earth people are newly born Christians? You know why? Because all of a sudden, this magical thing that I believed all my life, that somehow things exploded and coalesced and made planets, and this explanation for how we got here was good enough. But all of a sudden, that's not true. So wait a minute. If I'm living on a plane, I can't even visualize that. Wait a minute. There's a dome over me. I'm living in a place that looks like a snow. Well, clearly, someone had to put that here. That's the difference between a spinning ball, because that was just a bunch of crap crashing into each other and make-believe gravity forcing it into balls, and a pond or a swamp sometime, life sprung from that. That was the explanation that worked. But as soon as you realize that that's a lie, then all of a sudden you got a problem. How the hell did all this get here? Mm-hmm. So you got two choices. You can be an actual human being and try to work it out with your God-given talents as a human being, which can think with symbols and has a thumb and all these other amazing things people have, or you can just fall back on the older ways. And it's hard to fault someone for falling back on the older ways, particularly me, because it's like what I do for a living. If it was written in 1800s or 17, I want to see that. I want to be a part of that. If that was written in Latin, I'm all over that, because I speak a language that's bereft of any subtlety or gender or anything. So that's why all these flat earth people are very religious now, which is ironic because it's a time when the church is failing everywhere. I just read the Church of England's, attendance rate was like 1% or something. And when I read that, I was like, holy crap, is that even true? 1% for the Church of England. That's a heck of a fall in a generation.
Well, the other ironic part of that too, though, is that the church pushes heliocentrism.
Well, the church is case in point for the irony of the human condition, because presumably when they began to hide all the natural things they knew into the scripture and into all these other holidays or anything else, Does anyone wonder why St. Patrick's Day happened to fall on the real equinox a few days ago? There's a reason for that. St. Patrick actually knew when the right equinox was, while the news was lying to you. My point being, at some point, the people in front in their black robes no longer understood what was hidden in what they were reading to the people, but presumably some people over them did. But then enough time went by when even the people above them no longer understood what was hidden. And then it came down to there's some Orsini family that's been around since Adam and Eve, who have kept this idea alive, but they've only shared it with their own family. Very few people were brought up understanding these things anymore, and the people charged with the religious aspect of life were shouted and shamed into becoming literalists and human thought. I've read more Bibles than I can tell you, and I was once thrown out of a Bible study for simply asking if these were the only people in the world when Adam and Eve got thrown out of the Garden of Eden and Cain got the mark so other people wouldn't kill him. Who were the other people that were coming to kill him? Because they were the only people in the world, and they threw me out. And that's the literalist. That's the evidence of the literalism and the lack of human perception that's allowed in the door. But I think it's a good thing that it can be annoying at times when people are trying to push their viewpoints on you. But you know how much true natural science is hidden in the Bible? It's unbelievable how much.
A lot. I've actually realized recently that a lot is hidden in that Bible.
And there are people who still understand, and there's the old allegory. The moment you achieve the level of being worthy of a teacher that matters, there will be there one instantly without fail at that moment. They see you coming. There are people that know, but they're not poking their head up right now because they don't want to, they're not playing whack-a-gopher here. They're staying underground because they don't want to be marginalized or killed or whatever forced them to go underground in the first place. And not only that, in a low-minded society, what good would it do to put high-minded ideals in front of a low-minded society? So it comes down to the individual when the individual is ready, because certainly our society as a whole is so far from ready. It's not even funny.
And it's tough to get an individual ready all at once. You have to do it incrementally, sort of by degrees.
I wonder, I've wondered for myself if I'm sure it could be done in as many ways as there are people, but the idea that I've read over and over and over is they're aware of you when you start to get on the path, and they just check in and watch. Wow. And when you get there, they know. And then there's the idea too that some people have an epiphany, and it's not clear whether the epiphany is of their own volition or put on offer because they're ready for an epiphany. But we haven't lost these things, but we can. If we go to a completely artificial world and birth rates decline at the rate we think they are, there could come a time when the people who knew aren't here anymore. And still, truly, they're not lost. Apparently, as long as you can get back to the natural world, it's all there. It just has to be figured out all over again.
That's what we're trying.
And how many times has that happened? Have we gone into it?
Well, I can tell you it's happened at least once, because I am a firm believer that what we are told is the Dark Ages was actually a fall. And I suspect what came before it was higher-minded civilizations with all kinds of ability in perfect tune with nature, as close as that might be. And that's what's being hidden, because we can't live like serfs and slaves if we're aware there's something better.
And we get flickers of that higher-minded society through our lives. And some of us see it almost, but not quite. And
watch
grasp onto it and then move forward. Others don't. They're oblivious.
Think about this. Some of the videos you could see on YouTube, like some dude does a physical feat with basketballs, as an example. Like he's doing all these crazy things with a basketball while he's doing flips and everything, and then does a back hand flip and shoots a basketball all the way across the court into the hoop. But he doesn't just do it once, because he's got two basketballs that he was doing all this amazing things with, and the other basketball goes right behind it into the hoop. And then you see this guy juggling 25 balls. And then you see this young girl with a bow staff doing things that, if that would have been on tape and presented in the 60s, that would have been a world star right there, that little girl. or that basketball dude or that juggling dude, because the abilities of human beings are exponentially increasing. And if that can be demonstrated on the physical level, it can be mirrored in the mental level. But a big part of this is this dude who had some talent saw this other dude who had some talent, and what he saw the other dude doing spurred him to do his better. And that dude was seen by 10 other dudes, and then 5 women saw him, and then they all saw what each other were doing. And it spurred this time, which is now, it's a bit like the lunar wave. You put the lunar wave up and all these people see it, and it spurs this whole other thing. But human consciousness, I see regularly videos of people that I know certainly if video of them doing what they're doing now on YouTube would have been available in the 70s, they would have been the most famous people around for some period of time because of the amazing things that people can do, physical things that they can do with their bodies.
So we're not going backwards. I'd look around and sometimes think we are as a society.
I kind of feel like we hit the bottom and the artificial hole's being dug below us right now, but we've already hit the bottom. We should have been going back up by now, but in some sense we are. I mean, what if we could snap our fingers and all the sun that's being blocked by chemtrails stopped tomorrow? What would that mean in a month from now? What would that mean in a year from now? You see, this is artificial, and that is unsustainable. So you can't just block the sun. Now you've got to have vaccines. You got to trash a bunch of people physically. You got to offer them foods that are horrible, and you've got to diminish their schooling. You've got to remove their ability to read cursive writing because everything 50 years ago was written in cursive writing. You've got to come with all these angles that are artificial. And that's why I don't think there's a prayer, because somehow this place did get here and there was an intention. There is a reason for this. And the idea that someone can come into a perfect system and replace it with a freaking quasi not perfect system, to me, smacks of desperation. So they don't have the benefits that you and I have at the end of the day. But unfortunately, we're all convinced that the power is overwhelming, when the truth is the power is by very few over very many, and it's mostly driven by fear and lies. And not only that, the blocking of the sunlight's not helping. The crappy food you've eaten for the last 10 years isn't helping. The inoculations you got over the last 30 years isn't helping. None of these things are helping, but these are all artificial mechanisms, and that's unsustainable. You either have to acquire iron-fisted control or give up. Those are the two options. You can't do this forever.
So they're the wizard behind the curtain, small and powerless, but we think they're big and mighty.
That's why they made the movie Wizard of Oz, isn't it? And what's even worse is the wizard's a likable fellow.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I started practicing alchemy, was to get away from the medical industry. I didn't trust it anymore. So I started looking into ways that they used to make medicine, you know, and they actually healed people. And at first I didn't even get into it spiritually that much or astrologically. I was just kind of trying it out. And then the more I learned, the more I found out that there was something to it. Then I really, really started trying to hone in those types of skills, and it changed my whole worldview. I don't hurt anything anymore. Maybe a mosquito or a tick, but
there's a big difference between having a philosophical understanding and a literal understanding. And what we get in our world right now is literal ideas. And literal ideas, there's things that can't be weighed or measured, which is why science can't do what it claims it can, because the things that matter in this world can't be weighed or measured.
Yeah, your intention.
Yeah, they try to quantify everything, and not everything can be quantified.
Well, I have a feeling that the showdown's coming. They cannot keep this up forever. Already the chemtrailing has less. I don't know whether it's because they've reached some saturation, but this cannot go on forever. Something's got to give here. There's only so many resources in the world, and you know. So Rose just sent me an article from someone on Facebook showing that one of the inoculation companies is going to be in bed with UPS or else, where they're going to set up local vaccination places that will get that vaccination the final mile to the end user. that's how desperate this has become. And see, part of it is like, can you imagine if human being lived to be 150? Man, this world would have real problems with control if a human being lived to be 150. Can you imagine what you would know at 150? You see? And that's why we're convinced that cowboys died at 40 and we're lucky to do 70. But the truth is the inoculations and everything else, we're going to be looking at 50 for most of us if it keeps going down this road. But it shows the
120.
desperation.
120, and I'm going to go lay down. Thank my body for the ride, and yep, I'm going to pick out a nice, pretty spot.
I'll do my best to be late to my funeral, but if I'm 15 minutes late, I'll consider myself lucky.
Okay. I see this at least once.
Oh no, wait, I have one more question.
All right, never mind.
Okay, in a lot of the research, we've talked about this, I believe, when you were here before. There's a whole hidden agenda that seems to be at play here in this reality. Well, we're going to get deep and esoteric here.
I think we're already there, Walt.
Right. The reincarnation idea that it's a trap, that it's a lie to keep you here, to keep you back in the scheme of things where they have us all locked into this control system. Yes, no, thoughts?
I don't think there's a long lasting religious tradition that I've ever come across that doesn't have an idea of heaven or enlightenment or escape. And I think there's a reason for these things. And I studied Tibetan Buddhism for a lot of years, and that led me to other meditation people. And that's when I began to realize that that portion of religion is wholly driven by the mercurial idea, which is mind. Judaism being wholly Saturnian, Christianity being wholly Jupiterian. You can assign these things. Islam is wholly about Venus. But these are the slicing down of the elements of our world, the pieces of the pie. So if I'm just this Christian, then I'm this piece of the pie. Well, there's all these other pieces of the pie. But you see, I don't have an easy way to be Islamic, Christian, Judaism. I can't do them all in the current construct. And even if I could, they would be at odds with each other. This is by careful design. But what it tells you is that if we're trapped here on a prison planet, that it's probably because of our own doing. If we grew up and we reached for heaven or enlightenment, the idea there is that we're no longer subject to this. And so,
right.
Yeah, there's a trap, and yeah, a lot of it's underhanded. Matter of fact, it's more than underhanded.
Right.
It's one-sided in many cases.
So what I'm trying to back this into again is the fact that
it's against universal law to trap a human being beyond the possibility of escape. And
right, we had to agree to this. Exactly.
Whoever does that is going to pay a price, and the people who do these things are smarter than paying prices. You can't manipulate this many people and then collect the karma debt on the tail of it all, or you wouldn't last very long. In other words, the whole time we've been falling, they joined the dark side of the force, but they've been ascending. Problem is the dark side only ascends so far. So when you start being concerned with control and riches as your big reward, that's a far cry from the idea of heaven or nirvana. Which one of those two rewards would you rather have?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, I think, like I said, we're reaching that saturation point, and I think they feel it, they know it. Maybe that the white hats are trying to prep us for, hey, there's a ring and there's another civilization right over there. Get ready. We're about to figure out how to deal with it. Or they already over there and we're about to get, it just seems like.
I think there's a lot of people who most of us would call them who are also part of this awakening, and they're realizing, here I am enforcing all these things, and suddenly I don't believe in it anymore. And suddenly I'm questioning, are we on a globe? And so they may be verbatim trying to enforce what they're being told to enforce, but their heart's not in it anymore. And that's a turning point too.
No intent.
Ever considered that maybe, if you start to ask questions like, who in the hell would do some of this dark crap? Who would create inoculations that are going to make babies autistic? Who would ever do that? And there's all kinds of logic you can apply to try to get there. But at the end of the day, did you ever consider that maybe the people we consider are in charge lost control of the ship a long time ago and that they're screaming for help somehow? Because that's quite possible too. And it's why I never go, everyone wants to blame the Jews or this and that. I never go for that. Or they want to scream at some religious tradition. No, not taking part in any of that. It's short-sighted, it's narrow-minded, and it doesn't view the possibilities. What if the people in charge are screaming for help right now and everything they're doing that appears to be harmful is desperately trying to hold on? You don't know these things. So the point is, yeah, we're trapped in some way, shape, or form, but we can get out of the trap. If each of us made getting out of this the sole endeavor of our lifetimes, I'm guessing that quite a few of us would make it on the first try.
I agree with that.
I agree. Yeah.
I agree with that. I feel like it's
What movies are for, right? Don't pay attention to anything that matters. Here's Thor.
Yeah.
Pretty handsome dude, right? He's got a brother too. Oh, look, there's Scarlett Johansson. Check that out. You ever see Kim Kardashian's butt? Now you understand what it's for. I'm pretty sure they're going to cut that thing off and freeze it next to Walt Disney's head.
And make a whole human.
Well,
yikes.
Interchangeable.
Or a half-ass.
And on that note, good night, everyone.
And he'll be here all week, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
your server.
Even on a high point.
One more time, could you guys let everybody know when you plan on having the movie out? And it's hopefully going to be in New Orleans, possibly. That's where you're looking, but just a date and stuff.
The official release date is going to be April 5th, at which point we are more than likely going to be taking DVD and or Blu-ray pre-orders. From what I understand, people don't buy DVDs anymore. This is what I've been being told. That's why I'm kind of saying both, but I think it's probably going to end up being mostly Blu-rays. But I also need to have an idea of how many we need to order to have made up to send to people. So that's why we're going to do the pre-order thing. So if I need 10 or I need 50 or I need 1,000, I kind of need to know that ahead of time because it takes about 2.5 to 3 weeks to get. I've already been looking at multiple production houses and it's all about the same. So I got to have an idea for that.
Let me see how to explain this. Like the packaging itself is something that really has to be part of the equation if somebody's going to buy a DVD these days. If there's not some reason to have that physical object, then they just want it on a download or on a bit somewhere, whatever. So that's an idea. I'm sorry?
Would there be any exclusive content on
That's
the
what
Blu-ray?
I'm getting towards, is some kind of maybe inclusive extra footage or extra behind the scenes, cutting up with Crow out, as you said, having coffee with him, whatever, just something that's not going to be accessible to the general person that doesn't have the DVD in their hand.
Well, we've had people
we
ask
talk
us
about this afterward, Jason. I have so many ideas, man. We need to hang for sure.
Well, I wasn't even that hung up on the hard copies. People have already asked, though. That's why I'm saying that we're going to do them.
That's
People
good.
haven't
See,
asked.
already it's building.
Yeah. So I just need to know, again, how many we're looking at. So we want to do the premiere in New Orleans. That's already been decided. Again, we just got to get a kind of a head count so I know what location to get. Now, I've looked into AMC and Cinemarks and all those too. You can rent them out for a very reasonable price. So we could go to any city, and if we wanted to do it that way, it can be done for a very reasonable price. So there's that. Also, as I mentioned, I purchased a pretty nice projector and a 12-foot screen. So if someone has a home that's large enough to do so and they want to host it and there's enough people to gather, then we can do it there. And then it doesn't cost us anything, just costs me my travel, and that's it. So that's
what might the
How large is the screen?
12 feet.
What would be like a minimum amount of people that you would come for, just so people would know like how many they should be at least trying to gather before they contact you?
I'm open to interpretation on that. I'm not being overly particular on this. I was thinking maybe 50, but is that too many to shove into a house? I've never.
No, I was thinking that too, but at a house you'd have to do what fits. But I think that the mark to aim for a given venue is at least 50. I mean, otherwise, you're Peter Piper.
Yeah, well, if any of you have done any of this before, by all means, I'm open to suggestions. We're making this up as we go along, and we just want it to be good, and we want it to get to the right people.
Will your screen work?
Unless the world quits spinning.
Will your screen work outdoors, or does it have to be indoors?
No, it'll work outdoors. As a matter of fact, it came with these little spiky things so you can do outdoor showings and shove it into grass.
I'm going to email you because I have a home and I have property, and there's a lot of people around this area that would probably be interested in doing that. And I think that might be something we can set up here.
Where are you?
I'm in North Carolina. I'm about 45 minutes west of Charlotte.
You see a lot of chemtrailing where you're at.
I do.
I know.
I moved
some of the
here.
worst in the state outside Norfolk.
I moved here in 2011 and I was like super stoked because I was like, oh my God, look at the sky. It's so clear. Like, this is beautiful. Like, because I came from California.
Where in California?
I grew up in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, but before I moved here, I was living in San Diego. So, I mean, I saw all kinds of crap.
No, I feel your pain. I love San Diego too.
Right. And I came from there to here and I was just like, it was like noticeably before I even got into any of that stuff, before I even got into chemtrailing, I was like, oh my gosh, look at the skies here. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
And just a couple of years later, it was like everything changed. One year, it just started happening. Like the skies just became total crap. The rain stopped. Farmers lost their crops. And then there was a newspaper article that said, hey, are you a farmer and you lost your crops? Contact the government. We'll reimburse you. And it was like, when all that happened, I was like, it was just so clear to me. And that was like kind of where
when you leave New England and go south, as soon as you get within 100 miles of DC, it starts up. As soon as you get south of DC, it is bar none the worst chemtrailing I have ever seen in my life. My heart goes out to people who have to live under that. But to get back on point, you're in a spot where you have property and you think you might be able to get an audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be awesome. And plus, absolutely, I may be able to get out of here at some point in the summer when my sister goes on break. She could give me a break.
Well, I'm down. Like I said, I'm up for anywhere as long as we can financially pull it off. And that includes overseas. We've had people from the UK and from Australia asking, and I would love to do so. We just have to be able to afford to do it.
Well, then we will include you in with Roxanne and Robin. They're doing the UK tour thing. They're on here every other week, updating with stops and guests and all kinds of fun stuff. So I think there's a real opportunity there.
Lots of crossover here in all kinds of ways.
I think there's a real, I'd love to chat. What time is it? It's 3:05.
I know, man. That's what I keep saying. Look,
I'd love
stop this thing at some point.
I'd love to chat Jason and Crow about this. Certainly something.
Yeah, man. Just email me. No worries at all.
But words, I'm struggling with words at this point now. So
I could dress up like Robin Hood, man. Show up in Nottingham, that'd be sweet.
You would not want to see me.
There's your behind the scenes footage.
There you go. See Crow in tights. Buy the DVD now.
But yeah, guys, I'd love to maybe catch up and see what we could do here, because I the first thing I thought is I'd love to see that on the big screen. So
that's the ideal, yeah. Just with how much effort's gone into this, I want you guys to see it as it was meant to be. So if we can pull this off in as many places as possible, that would be wonderful.
Well, I'll help in any way I can, if I can.
Well, you're in Houston. That's a big city.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
And
gonna
that's
look
not far
around.
from me.
I'm gonna look around and see like what I know about here. Also, Jason, there's the W Hotel in the French Quarter in downtown New Orleans. They show films in an outdoor courtyard, and the weather there's usually okay, unless there's a hurricane. And they have the wall of the outdoor courtyard, and they do put film like any. They could probably set something up where people could go, like where the bar is, and get food and drink and sit outside. And then they have the side of a building where it's set up where they show films. So that's
Oh, I
kind of
like that idea. I like
W
that idea a lot.
Hotel in the French Quarter. The W in the French Quarter, not on
That's an excuse for people to go on vacation.
Yeah, and there's hotels like right there, or you could stay at the W. But there's I think 2 W's in New Orleans. There's one on Poydras. I can't believe I can remember this. I haven't been there for quite a while.
Well, I know where you're talking about.
Yeah, or the W. Now, potentially, because I left after the hurricane and then moved back and then anyway, it doesn't matter. They may have closed the W in the French Quarter, but you could check into it. And there's enough for several hundred people, not thousands, space wise. So it's an idea.
I'm looking at
Oh,
it
that's
right
great. Thank you.
And I think you're going to want to probably make sure your venue's a little bit bigger than what you're planning for, because I expect the turnout's going to be a lot better than you're anticipating.
All I know right now is we have one listener who's contacted us a few times saying he and his wife are flying to New Orleans for the premiere. So, which is a very humbling thing to hear, but I just don't know how many people are realistically going to show up yet. So that's why I said I got to get on the ball and just do a blast out and say, okay, how many people are actually seriously going to show up? Because I will pay for the biggest place for all of you if you're actually all coming. I don't care. I just need to have a realistic number.
I would definitely go if I'm not at some conferencey thing or whatever. It's not far from where I'm.
Well, that's like in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily going to be on the 5th, but we're going to do it around the 5th.
I'm going to write this down. April 5th. All right.
I don't think I can do YouTube much longer.
Yeah.
Not to get off topic. Sorry. I'm reading a comment. The firmament is an Anunnaki created barrier, part of their matrix, which has been established for a long time, but is coming to an end soon. Do not underestimate their techno. I can't do it.
Oh my gosh.
I cannot do it.
The show on which Crow decided to quit. This was
I kind of laid off reading my comments because of stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. It's
because the Anna mock me.
Oh my goodness.
All right. Well, I got to wrap up here, guys.
No, we definitely need to wrap up.
You got my email, right, Zach? You're
Sorry.
muted, bud. Unmute.
Sorry about that.
There
I've
you
been
go.
talking to you guys for the last 5 minutes. Oh, geez.
Well, now you know why, man. You thought we were being rude. It's on you, Bucko. No. You got my email?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I'll definitely be getting a hold of you here.
All right. And make sure that I know it's you. You have no idea how many emails I get in a day. And I figured out some time ago that if I get 300 emails and I spend a minute on each one, that I've lost 300 minutes in that day. So just be certain that I know it's you. And I'll see what I can figure out with Phoenix.
All right, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, we'll get together, see what we can figure out.
It's one of the most important things we could support at this point because a natural mind is less foolable.
Before we wrap up, for everybody out there, if you're interested in what we're doing, please go on. If you're still using social media, I'll stress that point. If you're still using social media, please come to the Facebook pages and start engaging with us in some way, shape, or form. So we at least have an idea of everything. And this way, when I post stuff on the Crrow777 study and discussion group, it's going to go out to everybody. If you're interested, that is the way we can do it. And then we realistically have a means of communicating to everyone in one big shot. But again, if anybody wants to, it's shootthemoonmovie@gmail.com if they want to contact me with anything regarding the film.
All right, so I'm guessing the next show we're going to do Sunday night, so we'll have to say some stuff there. which we have to remember. You should tell Rose because she's the only one of us that will remember. And then for episode 153 in the intro, we should always already start to announce there. Jason, I'm guessing, we haven't really even announced too much. I'm guessing we'll be okay when we announce. Providence is a hell of a thing, and it's not just the capital city of Rhode Island.
Truth.
Well said. Very well said.
All right, guys. Well, I'm punching out. Nice to have seen you all again. And Josh, give me a holler someday when you want to do it again. I'm happy to be here. And Zach, send me an email. And everyone else, have a great night.
Thanks so much, Crow. Thanks for all of
Crow.
Great talking to you again, and nice to talk to you for the first time, Jason.
Yeah, you too. It was great to speak with everybody. This is fun. We'll definitely do it again, I guess, right?
I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Maybe I'm going to meet you all in person at some point in the near future.
There you go.
Expect an email from me like probably tomorrow, Jason, with details on us getting in touch for sure.
Cool. And whatever ideas any of you guys have, just hit me up. Let me know. I'll get right back to you because we really do got to figure this out. So whoever has the brilliance that I don't, let's figure this out.
All right.
I'm going to be
Jason,
emailing you for sure.
Miss Steere, Walt, Iron Media, Zach. Have a good night, guys. I'm out.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, Crow.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Bye, Jason. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you here in a little bit.
All right.
And Patricia's gone.
Oh, well, thank you, Patricia.
That's
I wanted
Flat
to
Earth
say
and Other
that.
Hot Potatoes on
Yes.
YouTube. She was supposed to plug that before she left. That's all right. If
You
you don't know who that
she's
is,
got a
don't
show
know who that
there
is,
on YouTube. Right. Go check it out.
go outside and
Karen B.
practice following.
Everybody knows who Karen B is. You can find her here on YouTube under Karen B. Great channel.
It is. We always enjoy having Karen on. We didn't even get Squatchy.
No Squatch, man. I know, right?
How do you have Karen B on and not get
No
Squatchy?
Squatch. Oh, man.
I blame Crow.
Well, that's how you do it. Crow,
Exactly
Jason
how
Lindgren, and
Crow
Patricia Steere.
Patricia.
But it is official. You will be in Amsterdam this year. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't wait to hear what you plan on doing. I think you could do the same thing that you did in Denver.
I think after talking to Crow, I think I am going to do the same thing. And I think I'm just going to get a little bit deeper and I'm going to change it a little bit. I was getting a lot of ideas just listening to him talk. I still think it's a very important subject because human potential and human consciousness, I think that is literally our superpower. And that is how we are going to beat this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're not going to beat it with brute force. And I don't think it even needs to go that way. No, I don't even think any blood needs to be shed. You know,
None at all.
And I think it's a very important subject.
We fight it with love.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you fight hate with love.
Yeah. And you focus your energy on building up what matters rather than trying to tear down the bad. You build up the good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because people will they'll be, you know, attracted to the good.
Yes.
And as soon as they'll just quit listening to the bad, the only thing that gives these people power is the fact that we give it to them.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing that gives them power is us. You know? And all we have to do is not give them the power. It's that simple.
And realize our own power.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
We don't need people to tell us not to go kill people. We know not to go kill people, you know?
Yeah.
All this
Yeah.
stuff is instilled in us before we're even born. We know the rules. And they're trying to, you know, blur that line to where the rules are no longer the rules. It's becoming way too obvious and people are waking up, and it's a wonderful time to be alive, I think. I think this is
Mm-hmm. It is.
yeah, great.
Well, if I had iTunes, I would play Open Your Eyes by System Protest just for Travis, because I know that's what he really wants to hear coming out. But I'd have to download Spotify and get all that set up, and that's a bit beyond me at this point on a Friday. Then I was going to go with Gilligan's Island just for the sheer novelty of it. But I thought better of it and just said, F it. I'm just going to play out with a little bit of our theme song. But I figure it is time to go. It is late. We have to have Adam to shut down the stream. So we got to make sure we get out of here before he completely passes out.
Adam shut down about half an hour ago. I don't know about this.
You just heard his name and was like, what?
Hmm?
What? Huh?
That's why I'm talking about myself in the third person.
Which is what starts to happen at 3 a.m. I know.
That's been fun though, guys.
Wow.
I've enjoyed tonight. Really good.
It's been a hell of a time. Now that we actually have Crow on video, and this big thing from the lunar wave in 2012, I'm going to have to go back and search the Mayan calendar, because I'm pretty sure somewhere I'm going to find Crow's face inscribed on that Mayan calendar somewhere. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah.
But it has been a hell of a day. Hell of a show on Truth Frequency Radio, the Ironworks.
Great
We had
show.
Jonathan from New Jersey, the harbinger of the new year, bringing in Flat Earth for whatever year it might be. Who the hell knows? But it's a new one. The new year. He said in chat that he didn't just pop up for no reason. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So he says that this year is the year of Flat Earth. So we have that to look forward to. And this has been one hell of a New Year's show. Star-studded, action-packed. But thank you guys. I've had a really good time.
Thank you, Josh.
I'm tuckered. I am plumb tuckered.
Go get some rest, man.
I think I just might do that.
Karen B, thank you so much. I love you. This has been awesome. Every time you come on, I always get nice and shaved and try to look my best.
I love you guys too. Always love talking to you guys. You guys are so great and so down to earth. You guys are just like salt of the earth, great people. So I always love being here.
Well, we do enjoy having you.
Yeah.
Night, Karen, and Happy New Year, mate.
Yes,
Happy New
Love
Year.
you. Thank you so much.
Happy New Year.
All right. Well, then this will round out one more episode of Have No Sphere, our New Year's special. Thank
One
you.
for the books.
Huh?
One for the books. It was
One
great.
for the books. Absolutely. Thank you, Miss Patricia Steere. Thank you, Jason Lindgren. Thank you, Crrow777. Thank you again, Karen. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Walt. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, John Savage, wherever you are. I know you're around somewhere.
Savage.
Anyway, we'll see you all right back here next Friday for another exciting episode of Have No Sphere. I don't know. It seems like I had maybe a guest lined up, but now I've forgotten who that was. We'll figure it out. It may be nobody. We've got a lot of stuff to go over. We've got a lot of stuff to sort of process in our brains after today. But I love you guys. Bye-bye. Make sure you check out Walt, Zach, and I every Tuesday and Friday morning over on Truth Frequency Radio for the Ironworks, starting off at 4 a.m. Central, 2 a.m. Pacific. I'm not even going to try to figure out what the GMT time is at this time of year. Just go with that.